Welcome back to the Convo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula is here.
Yeah, he's here. And I'm here too. And I'm Fiorella.
Jonny Tsunami is on the ones and twos. Fam, you need to hit that because if it's a first-time watcher, they got to know who you are. And the way you started off, if you started off with energy, you started off with excitement, then you're just coasting the rest of the way through that whole video. You know what I'm saying?
No, you sound like a freaking brand advertisement right now, okay? Like, come on. Come on, fam.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got 20 people here on the Rokfin. We need you to go over from YouTube. Sign up on the Rokfin. It's Rokfin. Sign up for free today and join the Convo Couch where we don't get censored and we get love given to us. And by the way, thank you to all those people who left tips on our videos when we weren't even live, fam.
Yeah, that's really
Rokfin has
cool.
that feature.
Yeah, YouTube Rokfin lets people tip when you're not even live, which is freaking phenomenal.
I thought there was a chance they might monetize this back, but after Friday, probably not again. Probably after we start talking more elections and Thursday.
No, we haven't removed any videos. So, like I said, if we don't do that, they're not going to do it because
we'll see. We will see.
But
anyways, we have some awesome videos there. Fee, you have an amazing rant that's getting a lot of love too as well. Some people are going on and watching your rant. We have a couple stories about the Time Magazine and Maricopa County when it comes to elections. Had an awesome show with Gloria Jones the other day. Go check her out. She was amazing. Mm-hmm. Who did we have on Wednesday last week? Keep forgetting. Max Blumenthal.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. Go check out the Max Blumenthal interview, too, as well.
Was that last Wednesday?
By the way, right out of the gate, we have a small tip from Audi MRR. Modern Retro Radio loved Niko and the Convo Couch. Keep up the great work.
Awesome. Well, we should.
What is that word, though?
What?
You're the English major here. AUDESE.
I'm an English graduate, not an English major.
Excuse me. What is that word?
I don't know what word you're talking about.
Right here. Odyssey.
Is that the name? That's the name. That's their name.
Okay. Odyssey. AUDESE. Thank you so much. That is a very generous Ray tip to start off the show. That is amazing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We're going to put that to work, ladies and gentlemen. We have some stuff coming up. We're going to eventually, probably throughout the week, we'll probably break information about what's going on around St. Patty's Day. Won't we, fam?
Yes, fam.
And we had that awesome lady who was on the floor, the Irish woman sticking up for Julian Assange.
She was Irish, yes.
She was Irish. Somebody said she was Scottish, but I should have said something. Cam Schwari, Kate, thank you so much. Peer pressure made me do it. Stop it. We're not peer pressuring you. But thank you very much for the Super Ray. We do appreciate it. On the YouTubes, fam, we got 140 people listen. Red Sea Socialist, Bob K, Chris Leeds, Dino, Keith M, Fix the app. Nancy Ventura, Bob K. We're going to get that app fixed.
Yeah, I know.
We're going to talk about those apps.
It's frustrating.
Listen, they're working on all this stuff, and they've been improving. They actually have now a feature where we can actually schedule our videos out. The whole look looks incredible. And remember, they came up with the Super Ray. I mean, a lot of people who on their platform were telling them for a while, get the Super Ray, let's do it. And they even made it so you can leave a tip like we talked about when the video's not live. Mm-hmm. We think that is an awesome thing. So all you people on the YouTubes, fuck censorship. Get over to the Rokfin, Rokfin, and check us out because we have another amazing show today, and it's going to be great. So we want you to share it out there. So, fam,
let's get started because we have a lot of information,
all right,
and we don't have that much time.
If the glove don't fit, you must
acquit, fam.
Thank you. Wow. Donald Trump.
Donald Trump was acquitted, of course. This was all theater. If you've been following any of this, you know it was theater. The Democrats are not going to fight to convict, although all the Democrats voted in favor of impeachment. But, again, they always back down to what the Republicans do. Now, I'm not upset about this because impeachment was a giant fucking distraction, and we all know this. And they acquitted him basically of the charge of inciting a deadly attack on the Capitol, which it had no basis, no legal basis on. If they would have, if they could have actually prosecuted him for that, I think they would have. But also, you have to think about what do they gain by not acquitting him, right? And we're going to talk exactly about that. So, Johnny, you can just, I don't know if you've been playing some of that in the background, but there was like the 7 hours, of the impeachment trial that went on. And they basically, what they did was they edited a video. They edited a bunch of videos together to make it look much worse than it actually was. And the reality is it wasn't anything like that. they wanted to get information or get emotions out of people. They wanted to incite this sort of, oh my God, this was awful. What a travesty. What a violation of our democracy. Let me clutch my pearls a little bit harder. I'm going to choke myself with all the pearl clutching that I'm doing. And a lot of these fucking progressives fell for it. Like, oh my God, I can't even right now. This is so awful. I'm not okay, you guys. I'm not okay. Like, yeah, you're not okay maybe because you don't have fucking healthcare or stimulus, but you're totally fine watching a doctored video by Congress.
Yeah.
Anything to say about
that?
I
just want to say that, listen, I don't want to say that, and I think everybody says what happened on the Capitol was not a great thing. We would never, okay any type of violence or breaking in or that stuff like that, but a lot of times we said this during the Black Lives Matter protest, and then when we went to Portland too as well. It's like, I think our government needs to start realizing why people are mad, and stop pointing the finger all the time like that. You know what I'm saying? There was nobody, God bless you, I've never heard a Black Lives Matter activist, as far as a leader, whatnot, incite violence whatsoever. We've said this before. They do their speeches, and then they go home, but you can't control who comes there after, whatnot. Same thing that's going on. If this was the Stop the Steal rally by Ali, and then all these other guys, they didn't incite people to go and commit violent acts. And the fact that they try to tie it to he said we're going to have to fight. What does that mean? It's like, hello? And I told you before, this is a civil liberties issue for me. It's like, you have to allow robust speech. When Bernie Sanders says, stand up, fight back, and make your government work for everybody, that's okay. Mm-hmm. And if you do this to Donald Trump, now you're opening the shit gate for them to do it back to you when you get a chance. So that's why, more than anything,
but they're fine with it because it's Trump.
Exactly. That's the biggest
problem.
difference.
It's the ideology.
Yes.
Like, there's you right now comparing this to Black Lives Matter, somebody's going to say, I can't believe that. That's so racist. I can't believe you said that, Pasta. Because this is the mentality. It's like ideology comes first, not logic goes out the window. Yeah. Emotion is just, it's all, the Democratic Party manipulates people through emotions, especially the progressives. And so they react in this unhinged way where they're like, Nazis, everybody's a Nazi. And it's like, that's not really what happened. And if you just gloss over the fact that not everybody there was a Nazi, then you become basically a weapon, a pawn, a tool to continue pushing this narrative that really hasn't helped any of us at all in any way, shape, or form.
What has it really done? How's it moved the needle anyways and making our lives better, fam? And getting us out of trouble? It just doesn't happen.
So the mainstream media and their little stenographers have been talking about how the Democrats have failed. They're a failure just now because of impeachment, and how the Senate failed America. So the Nation did this whole article. Of course, the Nation did this article. And it was basically, I think it's an op-ed, but it said a refusal to convict a guilty insurrectionist and a failure to call witnesses against him is a tragic abandonment of accountability. And accountability is rich coming from the stenographers for the establishment. Like, what accountability do you have regarding the election system that's fraudulent before Trump? Before even fucking Trump showed up, we've had an election integrity issue, number one. Number two, where's the fucking $2,000 checks of your accountability? I'm wondering, where's that accountability? Where's the accountability by all these people who lie all the time? And we're going to go into exactly how they lied, because they literally exaggerated what happened at the Capitol to get people to sort of manufacture consent for, yeah, that's right, impeach. Let's make this our priority as you are dying because you don't have all your other businesses taken care of. You're making this your priority. You're letting them manipulate the narrative and the focus.
It also too gets the rhetoric of the left onto the right and the right onto the left. In other words, it just makes people completely, inflame the divide between everybody. So, and that's what the Democrats are doing. Look at these Republicans. We only had a few Republicans. I heard a YouTuber or a podcaster or independent journalist saying that this will go down in history as a failed thing by the senators who didn't do this. This guy was guilty as sin, and this is awful, and it was blah, 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 and they failed. And it was an utter joke. But, fam, let's continue to go on, because the way they're selling this to distract you from doing what they need to be doing. That's it. Bottom line. Red herring.
Yeah, and so basically, I just want to read this part right here. Every member of the United States Senate swears an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and makes a commitment to bear the faith and allegiance to the same. After the House of Representatives impeached Donald Trump for the incitement of insurrection that resulted in the deadly January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol of the United States, the duty of true faith and allegiance to the Constitution demanded the senators try and convict the 45th president of the high crimes he committed. High crimes. 57 senators, 50 Democrats, and 7 Republicans judged Trump to be guilty. And of course, Jamie Raskin was the one who was the concluding representative. AOC thanked him very, very largely. But they said he committed a massive crime. Blah, blah, blah. I can't even go into this, but it basically 43% or 43 Republicans voted against finding him guilty. And they needed the 2/3 majority to hold the most dangerous and destructive president in this country's history to account. And Schumer labeled that choice a vote of infamy. So again, like, they were upset that this didn't happen, blah, blah, blah. They did the whole theatrics. But the reality is they didn't really have any grounds to convict him. I had an argument yesterday with a roast Twitter account. Of course, they were roast Twitter. But Trump is guilty. He should be convicted. He incited an insurrection. I'm like, exactly how did he incite this insurrection? They can't answer that question for me. They simply say, well, he got a group of white supremacists to go there. I'm like, I was there. There was a few Proud Boys. Yeah, I'm sure there was a few white supremacists. Yeah, for sure. Like, the symbols. But the vast majority of the people were white supremacists. What do you mean? And like, they can't answer these questions because they're full of shit. And I'm like, I listened to his whole fucking speech. No. Nowhere in there did he actually, and it's like violence. And this isn't about defending Trump. This is about defending the truth of what happened. Because if you go down that path of, I'm gonna move the goalposts of the truth because I don't like him, then what are you really? You're pretty much just pushing a narrative. You're not a real journalist. You're not a real political commentator. You're not anything remotely close to that.
And if you're on the left and you're pushing that narrative, they're going to use it against you too as well, moving that goalpost.
Oh, of course.
Say, because fam, we're going to march down to the Capitol. We're going to do it peacefully because we're the party of law and order. He said that twice in that speech, by the way.
So I just want to move on to their exaggerations because the New York Times quietly, very, very quietly, had to update a report that they had pushed that a fire extinguisher was the what caused the death of a Capitol police officer. In fact, they used this in the impeachment trial, saying that all of this was what happened. And this is the Washington Examiner, right? But I'm going to go over from the CNN article as well. Basically, they updated this month-old report about the siege of Congress that perpetuated the idea that a Capitol police officer, Brian Sicknick, might have died after being struck by a fire extinguisher. Now affixed to the top of the report, headline, Capitol police officer dies from injuries in a pro-Trump rampage, is an update. New information has emerged regarding the death of the Capitol police officer, Brian Sicknick, that questions the initial cause of his death provided by close officials of the Capitol Police. So let's go to the actual CNN article that talks about the New York Times article. And if we go down to last week, no, right before that. Okay. So in police audio played at Trump's Senate impeachment trial, officers could be heard screaming during the attack that some members of the violent Capitol mob were spraying them with bear spray. Mitt Romney told reporters Wednesday that Eugene Goodman had indicated that he had to breathe a lot of bear spray and tear gas. Interesting. Now you know what it feels like. While serving on January 6th, blah, blah, blah. So Sicknick was the 13-year veteran, right, that we were just talking about. He was part of the police force. He died on January 7th, one day after he collapsed in his office after being, quote, injured while physically engaging with protesters. And this is what the Capitol Police had said in a statement this past month. But investigators struggled to piece these things together, and they had video and photographs to determine exactly the moment he died. And they had claimed that he had died as a result of being struck with a fire extinguisher. But it turns out that isn't true, like CNN had previously reported. They laid him to rest in honor in the Capitol building in an emotional ceremony where he was visited. It was attended by Joe Biden and Jill Biden and congressional leaders. More than 100 police officers were also injured last month, and 15, I guess, required hospitalization. But if you scroll down here, Sicknick's death is being investigated by the DC Metro Police Department Homicide Branch, and they basically realized that he didn't die from that. He didn't die from a fire extinguisher. And if you want to play some of that footage, Johnny.
Are you saying, fam, that the Democrats are weaponizing this man's death for political purposes?
Yeah, fam. Aren't you surprised?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Democrats would never do such a thing.
Yeah.
Because they're the party of honesty and integrity. And CNN airs it, right? They were against anything happening all summer, but now they're kind of, they serve the elites. That's all the police force does. They are stormtroopers, fam. Whoever's got the Emperor's cloak or Doku's freaking thing, they're gonna politicize it.
So, yeah. So they lied.
Yeah.
In other words, so now we have Glenn Greenwald.
Let me get up there for you.
Is also talking about this, right? And on February 13th, 2021, I think it was the next one, Johnny. There was the third one down. This one right here. Amazing. And New York Times, that one.
Yeah.
Okay. So he mentions also that the New York Times quietly, of course, fixed or updated their article, which is really a correction, if not a retraction, to the January 8th article where they talk about Sicknick's death. And the media, of course, this is what they use to spend a full month spreading the false fire extinguisher tale. And there it is. It says it right there. New information has emerged regarding the death of the Capitol Police officer Brian Sicknick that questions the initial cause of his death provided by officials close to the Capitol Police. Okay, so they're withdrawing the original story in the least informative way. Glenn says no explanation of how it got this wrong, right? Because it's okay for them. If we spread a conspiracy
we'd be taken down.
A police officer died because he was bashed in the head with a fire extinguisher. Oh my God, everybody would be outraged. The progressives, all these people who hate us would be like, it's conspiracy theory. Like, but the New York Times can do this. They simply say, there's an update. Not we were wrong, but here's an update to the story, even though they were pushing this thing like it was fact.
Yeah. Fam, I'm waiting for the update on all the WMD stories that they've put out there forever and stuff like that, when we were all duped into thinking that Saddam could get a bomb to kill us, so that's why we had to go in there and set the whole Middle East on fire. But hold your breath on that one, too, as well.
And then Glenn says, if you go down, he says, if you think that's hyperbole about how Dems think, that they desperately want to be fed politically pleasing fake news, check the rage under the tweet of mine, including these, that points out the original story was 100% false, and nobody knows how or why Sicknick actually died. And there it is. Blah, 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 that he had been pepper sprayed and he was in good spirits. Nothing about him being bashed on the head. Okay, so here we go. Here is this. This is just yet proof that these mainstream media propagandists and stenographers are held to a completely different fucking standard than independent media. Yeah. And independent media has limited resources all across the board, limited people, limited funds, limited everything. And yet we managed to actually tell the truth at a way higher rate. Right? And if in fact you never make a single mistake and you tell the truth 100% of the time, you're right now in jail in Belmarsh prison because you're telling too much truth. Yep. And they need to make sure to make an example out of you and shut you up because you're not allowed. The goal of U.S. state propagandists isn't to tell the truth. It is to tell a narrative. And if you stray from that narrative and tell the truth, as a real journalist should, you are imprisoned or maligned. So.
I think it's plain and simple right now. We understand this. And this is going to be, let me tell you something. We talked about how often does Biden come out to talk. We haven't seen him, whatnot. And the media is protecting him him at every single step of the way. You know, we also were watching Jimmy Dore's show last night, and he said, who will be the first mainstream comedian to make fun of Joe Biden being like a zombie? It hasn't happened yet. Will they dare to do it? Because, I mean, right now, if I was one of those guys, very first day, you know, I would be making fun of Joe Biden's loose change in the heads. So we also have the Gravel Institute. Did you want to show that one too as well?
Yeah. So I can see it there. But basically what the progressives largely, right? Not all of them, but the vast majority of them. And the majority of the Democrats, of course, are getting wrong about this, is that the Democratic Party isn't just a failure because of impeachment.
No.
They have been a failure for the American people for a very long fucking time. So when you manufacture this story like, oh my God, the Democratic Party has failed us. How dare they fail to impeach Trump? Now we're going to have Trump 2024. You're playing into that fear mongering. That's exactly what they want you to do. They want to use this idea that now that they didn't convict Trump, you must vote for Kamala Harris in 2024 or you're going to get Trump. They're going to continue using the same narrative. You know why? Because it fucking worked. Because they got a lot of people who in 2016 voted for Jill Stein to now in 2020 voted for Joe Biden. And I'm telling you, the progressive movement, instead of moving further left, regressed into the establishment of the Democratic Party. I know, because I personally know at least 100 freaking activists that went from going Green Party to going back into the Democratic Party.
You see David Schwab's comment right there. It's so great. It's not incompetence, from what the Gravel Institute said, because they said you can really never underestimate the absolute incompetence of the Democratic Party. And David Schwab says it's not incompetence. The Democratic Party is very good at what it does. It takes up space where a left party should be and maintain corporate rule in the United States. And that's what they're really doing right now. Right there. They're duping people with all this bullshit. They go out there and they fish for people who are going to wear their hearts on their sleeves and be emotional and are driven by their their emotions, not the nuance of policy. And that is the biggest issue when it comes to our tribal mentality nowadays.
Yeah, and they're extreme. The progressives are extremely tribal,
and
the Democrats aren't incompetent only. They're purposely incompetent, which makes them complicit. They're complicit in doing all these things to push their narrative. Now, Nancy Pelosi, she has said this before, but she said it again. She said during a press conference with House members after Trump's second impeachment trial, she said, I think our country needs a strong Republican Party. It's very important.
I think our country needs a strong Republican Party. It's very important. And for him to try to have it every which way. But we will be going forward to make sure that this never happens again in terms of to investigate and evaluate what caused this, and both in terms of the motivation, but also in terms of the security that we have to have as we go forward, recognizing how inflaming even some of our elected officials can be.
Right. So, God, there's so much in that.
We're going to make sure this never happens again, fam.
Yeah, but by that they mean that you do not get to actually protest or talk about election fraud or talk about anything against the government because now you're inciting violence. Do you not see this? This is now we're entering the age where anything you say will literally be used against you. And not just when you're in a court of law, but when you're not, when you're just a regular person. Because so many people swallowed this narrative, like we needed to have this whole trial that he was inciting violence. They're repeating these CNN, Cuomo / mainstream media talking points, CIA talking points, actually, without having any evidence to back it up. They were able to have this trial and then do the whole theatrics of, see, now he was acquitted. But now we're just going to make sure this never happens again. So now we can't question our elections. We can't question the government. And if you're a representative that's actually speaking against the government, you are also going to be removed, because look what they're trying to do. Yeah. And they're framing it like this is, trying to make our country democratic. This is going after corruption, but that's not what they're doing. They're actually trying to silence dissent. Yeah,
they're manufacturing consent to go out there and silence you as much as possible, and they're going to use that against the left just as well as the right. Any dissenting voice, any anti-establishment voice, and there's plenty of us on the left too as well who decided not to go get sheep herded right back into the goddamn party, who are going to constantly stand up and speak. And furthermore, they're not acknowledging once again what we always said when we were out there all summer. Like, listen, ladies and gentlemen, we understand that George Floyd was brutally murdered and it was a racist thing that happened. But also, it was a fuse that lit when people are poor, starving, and suffering. They see homeless people on the street. They're getting thrown out of their houses, and now you want to go and kill somebody racially because of a racist, fucking disgusting reason. It just was boom. It was the fire. In this particular sense, why would 95% of the people there? 95% of the people were there, and we talked to a lot of people. We educated people. They were there because they feel the election wasn't fair. You know what I'm saying? And you have to acknowledge that. And they're still trying to.
You have to acknowledge it.
They're still trying to push back and that particular person who I said that was a independent media person who was like, this is disgusting, still threw out the fact that 75 million people are stupid and are imagining stuff and living on conspiracy theories rather than looking at the framework and the bullshit which has led them to believe that our elections aren't fair. Johnny says it all the time. Just go to your local freaking registrar. See what's going on. You'll say, what the hell are they hiding? Why are they hiding this? We still haven't got a real audit. So, I mean, I don't want to get too deep into that, but once again, that's what they're doing. They're manufacturing consent to silence everybody who complains about them. They're trying to force a fascist police state against us.
Yeah.
And you're allowing that to happen because it's but Trump.
No,
Stop it.
It's ironic because they're saying we're fighting Nazis. No, you are being controlled by actual fascists.
Yes.
And you're letting them control the narrative.
Yep.
And you're maligning people who are telling you that that's what's happening as you know, this red-brown alliance, which is completely not happening. And so what the whole point of this whole thing is, they were never going to convict Trump, right? These Democrats were never going to convict Trump because they need another reason to fearmonger you into voting for Harris in 2024, because we know that this isn't just a Biden presidency. This is Kamala Harris, first woman VP, first woman of color, first Asian and Black. You get both in one candidate, and it's intersectional fascism. This is perfect. Look, she's a cop, but it's okay because she's a woman of color, and all little girls can feel now so proud that there's a woman that could potentially they could look up to, right? And they once again do this whole emotional manipulation. Not that representation isn't important, but the way they manipulate it above actual policy is actually a detriment to a lot of working class people, especially people of color. So we know that they're as unpopular as Kamala is. She didn't win one single delegate. They're going to say, delegate. You know what? You have to vote for her, because if you don't vote for her, Trump is going to win, and he can win in 2024 now that he wasn't acquitted. So that's what they're feeding into. Yeah. And if you don't take that into consideration, and if you just say, well, now Trump's going to win, no, that's not the point. It's not that he's just going to win. It's that they're going to use that again.
As an excuse.
Don't
vote for that person. Every single election will be the most important election of our time. Yeah. Johnny.
And they could have really gone for different reasons, right? The correct reasons to impeach Trump, right? But then if they did, it would bring everybody else into it, right?
What's he got going
Starting
on?
A war with trying to start a war with Iran.
War crimes.
I mean, he amped up the bombing, right? You could talk about that, but he's gotten like the emoluments in Saudi Arabia and Israel alone. It's ridiculous, but what's going on? We talk about the Ukraine. The most ridiculous thing about the Ukraine impeachment was the fact that the Democrats were saturated, the leaderships were saturated in corruption within Ukraine once the government changed. Everybody from Adam Schiff receiving money from oligarchs that were now part of the new friendly government, Paul Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi's son, getting oil contracts, Hunter Biden for Burisma, John Kerry. So that was the whole ridiculousness of it. So if you try to impeach him on emoluments, you're then opening the door and say, what's going on? I mean, insider trading from the whole freaking Congress, Democrat and Republican, is disgusting and something should be looked upon. But that's why they'll never, ever impeach him on those reasons. That's why they never even criticized him on the reasons that were valid. You know, civil liberties, when this guy's sitting there saying you should go to jail for a year for burning a flag back in the days, that was the most dumbest thing in the world. It's like, are you serious? That's a fascist fucking state you're trying to push there. When you want to say the football player should be fired for kneeling, hey, dude, he's not paid to stand for allegiance for the military. He's paid to throw and catch a football. How dare you try to interject that your nationalism, your bullshit fucking ideology into professional sports? You know, and there's so many different things. And then not parting of Julian Assange and Edward Snowden. It's not something that's impeachable, but let me tell you something, fam. It's something that will not allow him to win in 2024 if there's a viable candidate. The only way Donald Trump can win is if Kamala runs. It's Kamala versus Trump, then Trump's got a shot. But right now, Trump is shit his pants out the door and has bent the knee to the deep state, the intelligence apparatus, whoever you want to talk about it, by not doing so. I don't want to get lost, so let's...
So I just wanted to put this tweet too, because this is all a giant distraction. Because
I like this Sky Daddy person.
This Sky Daddy person said, as someone who's been homeless as a teenager, fuck every last person who thinks this Trump impeachment trial is more important than relief checks.
Exactly.
Because it's not, and it was never more important than relief checks, but they were trying to make it more important. And those of you, clutching your pearls about this whole impeachment trial, let that happen. Yeah. Because meanwhile, where's the $2,000 checks? In fact, right after this, Congress has gone on a break. Yeah. They've literally gone on a break. They haven't pushed anything regarding the $2,000 stimulus.
Nothing.
And they promised $2,000. There are multiple videos, we have talked about this, where they didn't say, you're going to get the difference. No, they said $2,000 if we get Georgia if we win the Senate majority, and if Joe Biden wins.
But fam,
but none of that happened.
Bernie Sanders said you get the extra $1,400, not the extra $2,000.
And that's the worst part. Bernie Sanders is being one of their cucks, regurgitating this whole fucking thing. Like, he's making this sound like it's okay. He's doing PR for Biden.
He is.
Like, where did you go from fucking 1986 Bernie Sanders talking about the Sandinistas to now doing PR work for fucking Joe Biden? This is a fucking timeline we live in, and I don't like it.
Yeah, it sucks because Bernie Sanders is gone. By the way, go follow this Sky Daddy. It's imagine trusting the government with the crying sign. I mean, fire. The tweets coming out of this this Twitter account right here, fire. So, fam, you had something right over here. You said, what is they won't stop?
Yeah, because the trial isn't over, but they're still going to continue investigating this terrorist attack on our nation's capital. So this is what they're saying. They're saying they may disagree, but they seem to be on the page above one thing. This chapter has not closed quite yet. And senators from both parties said there should be, and I quote, a 9/11 style investigation into the January 6th Capitol riots, and that Trump had spewed falsehoods relating to the 2020 election. So now not only they're basically saying we're going to investigate this in a 9/11 style, which you know how that went with the Patriot Act and the Espionage Act and all these things, amping up to the 10th degree. Not only that, but now they're involving elections in it. So now when you question the validity of our elections, when you absolutely should, because we haven't had a fair election in God knows how long, you are now inciting some sort of insurrection. That is fascism. That is so beyond scary, because people like us who are trying to raise awareness about the fact that we need election transparency in this country, that we have absolutely none, are now going to be paintbrushed as some sort of insurrectionist who want to, like, take down the democracy when we actually want to restore democracy that we don't have. So I don't know if we ever had it. I don't know. It's crazy now to think about democracy.
Now, fam, she's a fire. Clip that up. Man, I love when my partner gets crazy. Let's talk about the lawyer over here, Michael Van Dore. Just got a couple clips because we got to show some stuff on the floor. Because once again, one of the things I didn't mention, Johnny, and I should have mentioned, was the fact that Donkey Trump also tried to clarify Antifa as a domestic terrorist. Mm-hmm. So that is bullshit, because we went to Portland and they're grabbing people off the streets unjustly without reading them the rights, detaining them, not telling them where they're going.
Cars.
That's bullstein. And that's why it's going to come back and bite them in the ass, and why some of these Democrats feel they can do what they want to do. Is like, okay, we're going to get you now for what you did to us. And once you move that goalpost and you say that this type of robust political speech is not okay for one side, it's going to happen for the other. And I hate the tribalness of it, whatnot, but that's what happens. Both political parties get in there because we have a duopoly, and they'll take turns swiping at each other. Now, here is Michael Van Dore on the floor talking about, you want to try my client. Now, Michael Van Dore is part of the Michael Van der Veen. He's one of the Trump lawyers right now, whatnot. He talks about political speech and how one side should be able to say it, so should the other. We don't attack robust political speech like saying words like fighting. Go ahead.
We have some video to play that highlights some of what I'm talking about. I preface this video by noting I am not showing you this video as some excuse for Mr. Trump's speech. This is not whataboutism. I am showing you this to make the point that all political speech must be protected.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
There needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
You got to be ready to throw a punch. You have to be ready to throw a punch.
Donald Trump, I think you need to go back and punch him in the face.
That I thought he should have punched him in the face.
I feel like punching him.
I'd like to take him behind the gym if I were in high school.
If we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
No, I wish we were in high school. I could take him behind the gym.
I will go and take Trump out tonight.
Take him out now.
Okay.
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
And you push back on them, and you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
Please, get up in the face of some Congress people.
People will do what they do.
I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, You have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price.
We're gonna go in there, we're gonna impeach the
This is just a warning to you Trumpers. Be careful. Walk lightly. And for those of you who are soldiers, make them pay.
If you had to be stuck in an elevator with either President Trump, Mike Pence, or Jeff Sessions, who would it be?
Does one of us have to come out alive?
Again, I did not show you their robust speech to excuse or balance out the speech of my client, for I need not. I showed you the video because in this political forum, all robust speech should be protected, and it should be protected evenly for all of us.
Right?
Yep.
Plain and simple. It's about protecting speech over here, fam. I mean, that's the underlying nuanced situation over here. Obviously, we know they're using this as a distraction, so they don't have to actually work on legislation that will help the people, fam.
Mm-hmm.
Just their little theatrics and their latte liberals and shit. I mean, why would they have to go out there and help the people? And they're still not acknowledging the fact that all these people were there because pissed off with the election results. Instead of saying, hey, we can't go back and change the results, let's work on the future and let's amend our election system to make it free, fair, and balanced and transparent.
And basically, I just wanted to comment on the fact that the reason why so many people, the Republican Party gains so many people is because we live in a duopoly and we don't have strong third parties or the ability for them to be strong, right? But when you do shit like this, when you're a hypocrite and you completely change and move the goalposts depending on which ideology or party you find yourself affiliated with, it's really disingenuous, it's really hypocritical and dishonest. And a lot of the right then justifiably goes and attacks Democrats and said, you're a bunch of hypocrites. You're literally, clutching your pearls about this, but then look what these people are saying, which is far worse. I mean, saying that he should be killed or have a bullet in his head, all these things, you could say that's far worse than anything he said. And again, if it seems like I find myself defending Trump, I find myself defending the truth. Because this is the quick, emotional, oh my gosh, you're defending Trump. I'm defending the fucking truth. Because what happens when you don't defend the truth is that you become one of these people where rules apply to whoever you like, and different rules apply to the people you don't like.
Yeah.
That's not how that's not how you can actually run a country, though.
That's how I know you're not tribal, fam. And the truth is the truth, no matter whose mouth it comes out of, even if it does come out of Donald Trump, which doesn't happen as often as we'd like because he's full of shit half the time, but it seems like they always go after him for telling the truth too much.
Right.
That's what his whole presidency seemed
without decorations.
Yeah. Now, Michael Van der Veen, I got it right the second time. He also did an interview with CBS right after, and this is some amazing things, fam, because once again, they tried to justify, you see the mainstream media just shilling for the establishment, try to justify the doctoring of the major video of the 13-minute video. And that proves to me more than anything, fam, that they were never going to convict him. They just want to get a narrative out there and then move the hell on, distract people from what's going on, and everybody's going to believe that video no matter what, who sees it, and they're not going to listen to this, what happened, what went on. But this has a few million views here, has a few million views cut up on Twitter. So take a look at this. Johnny, did you want to say anything before we play this? Check this out, this exchange. This is pretty damn good.
Joining me now is former President Trump's attorney, Michael Van der Veen. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Let's get right into those words that we heard from Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. He ended the trial with his passionate speech about President Trump's involvement in the insurrection. During it, he said that the former president is still liable for everything he did during his period in office. Are you expecting to face more charges against Mr. Trump in the near future, and do you anticipate being part of that defense?
No, that's just political rhetoric, and I was hopeful that something would come out of this, that the political rhetoric would stop out of Washington, D.C., but I guess apparently it hasn't.
Were you, though, surprised to hear those words coming from the leader of the Republican Party in the Senate?
I'm not surprised to hear a politician say anything at all. No.
Well, throughout the trial, you denied that Mr. Trump had a role in inciting the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol. You argued, first of all, that there was no insurrection, but during your closing arguments, you seemingly admitted that there was, in fact, an insurrection, using that word, saying that was not up for debate. What role did the former president play?
You didn't understand the case. I used the word
I'll give you the opportunity to clarify, sir.
Sure. I used the word insurrection in my closing argument when quoting the charging documents. What happened at the Capitol on January 6th is absolutely horrific. But what happened at the Capitol during this trial was not too far away from that. The prosecutors in this case doctored evidence. They did not investigate this case, and when they had to come to the court of the Senate to put their case on, because they hadn't done any investigation, they doctored evidence. It was absolutely shocking, I think, when we discovered it and we were able to expose it and put it out. I think it turned a lot of senators. The American people should not be putting up with this. They need to look at who these House managers were and look to see whether these are the folks they want representing them. It was shocking to me. Wouldn't have believed it.
Let's follow up with a point that you're making right now about the House managers, as you say, doctoring evidence, and the argument.
They didn't deny it.
Viewers.
They didn't deny it. I put it in front of them 3 times.
To be clear for our viewers, what you're talking about now is a check mark. That's a verification on Twitter that did not exist on that particular tweet. A 2020 that should have actually read 2021, and the selective editing, you say, of the tapes. Is that the doctored evidence of what you're speaking?
Wait, that's not enough for you? That's not enough for you?
Wait. No,
sir,
no. I am not a juror in this trial. What I'm trying to be clear for our viewers is what you're referring to, because not everybody has been following.
It's not okay
not everybody,
to doctor
sir,
a little bit of evidence.
Respectfully. I have not said it is okay.
Ma'am, your question is
I want to be clear for our viewers.
Listen, what has to happen is
about what exactly you're saying when you say doctored evidence.
The media has to start telling the right story in this country. The media is trying to divide this country. You are bloodthirsty for ratings, and as such, you're asking questions now that are already set up with a fact pattern. I can't believe you would ask me a question indicating that it's all right just to doctor a little bit of evidence. There's more stuff that we uncovered that they doctored, to be frank with you, and perhaps that will come out one day. But we won this case, and I'm not a sore loser, but what happened, or a sore winner, I should say, but what should happen is somebody should look at the conduct of these House managers. It's unconscionable, aside from all of the due process violations that my client had. And the media should be looking at a square, straight way. The straight way. When I watch the news, I watch one station and it's raining. I watch another station at the same time and it's sunny. Your coverage is so slanted, it's got to stop. You guys have to stop and start reporting more like PBS does rather than a TV news show that doesn't have any journalistic integrity at all. What I'm telling you is that they doctored evidence. And I believe your question says, well, it's only a Twitter check and changing a year of a date here. They switched the date of a Twitter a year to try to connect it to this case. That's not a small thing, ma'am. The other thing they did is they put a check mark on something to make it look like it was a validated account when it wasn't. And when they were caught, they didn't say anything about it. They didn't even try to come up with an excuse about it. And that's not the way our prosecutors or our government officials should be conducting themselves. And the media shouldn't be letting them get away with it either. I'm tired of the biased media on both sides, left and right. What this country wants, what this country needs, is this country to come together, to take the left and the right and find a middle ground and start responsibly being our public officials, our elected officials. And one of the reasons why they do it is because of the media, because the media wants to tell their narrative rather than just telling it like it is. And frankly, I'm tired of it. I'm not a media, I'm not in front of your cameras all the time, but what I've been subjected to this last week.
I understand, and I've given you the opportunity.
You don't want to hear the truth. Yeah. Okay.
I've given you the opportunity. I will remind you that what I said was that for our viewers who have not been following all of the hours of this trial, to be clear about what you are speaking about. And I understand
I'm speaking
that you
about
seem
the House
very
manager's
upset.
failure to prove their case. That's what I'm telling
And
you. They weren't able to
won
prove their
the
case.
acquittal. You have won the acquittal of your client.
Yes,
and if you'd like to continue to talk about this conversation, we can have that discussion.
I don't need to.
But for me to ask a question, to clarify for our viewers,
a slanted question that was set up to say it's okay for them to cheat. That was your question. Isn't it okay for them to cheat?
I didn't say
it's just a little bit. You said, to be fair, it was only a check on the Twitter. That's what you said. You got to live by your words. That's the problem. The media has to start living by the truth and not try to create a narrative.
Michael van der Veen.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us. I do appreciate.
Yep.
Okay. I see you taking off your microphone.
Johnny, I had to wait till we threw down the lavalier, man. I'm so sorry. Thank you guys for hanging in for that whole video. But I mean, it's okay to just cheat a little bit. Gold. But it just seems like the establishment, both sides, does this all the time. They justify their cheating. It's like the Time magazine article. Yep. They justify what they do.
They don't just justify it. They admit it. But they gloss over it like it needed to be done and that it's okay for them to justify it because of Trump and what he represents and how much they hate him and the entire ideology of the right, which, again, like he's saying, the media needs ratings. The media is bloodthirsty. That's exactly what they are. I mean, that's exactly what this whole impeachment trial was about. It was about distracting people with their ratings and distracting them from the fact of where is my fucking money? Where's my stimulus check? We have Jill Biden posting little hearts out there like a moron, and it's okay, peace and love and harmony. No, what sort of bullshit is that? I mean, America is a fucking joke, and it's more of a joke because the American people are too busy picking sides. We have 90% of the fucking progressive movement, the Bernie movement, who has turned on people like Pasta and myself for simply pointing out this obvious fact that you are being duped and you have fallen for this mainstream media propaganda machine. And this guy who's defending Trump as his lawyer has to come out and tell you the fucking truth because you he has to say it. It takes this guy to freaking say it to the stenographer. She doesn't know. She's paid to pretend to ask these truthful questions that have a slant. This is all set up this way, and he's absolutely right. And the fact that it takes a lawyer to have to come out and say this for anybody to listen, I mean, that was gold. That was amazing video, Pasta.
Citizen, he says. I love it. Citizen. I'm going to read some Super Rays and let's bring on our guest. He's hanging on in there. We have an awesome story to talk about, ladies and gentlemen. The mainstream media has been ignoring it, but we brought in the best guests to talk about it. But first, get over to Rokfin, Rokfin. This guy who's going to be coming on is also on the platform. You can get all his articles, his work over there. It's great. Glory Jones says, this Super Ray is dedicated to Pasta's mom since we cuss so much. Much love. Thank you, Glory Jones. We got 86 watching. Come on, we need 14 more. It will make fam happy when we get over 100 people watching in the live stream. T-Can, the Convo Couch, received a tip. Oh, and by the way, we have shirts coming in today. I got the call, so I'll be sending you out your tips. And then we're going to read some of the Streamlabs as well. Mandy Zimmerelli. Oh, I love this name. And now I love you even more, Mandy Zimmerelli. Thank you for that Convo Couch. Huh?
Zimmerelli.
You're okay. Mandy Zimmerelli. If you want to be Italian, Zimmerelli, we love you. Mercy me. Thank you so much. And thank you, Mandy. That was a very generous Super Ray from you. We love you. Never forget 1-6. Fam, she's doing the 9/11. Forget. Mercy me. Never forget.
Never forget. Hashtag never forget. Where were you on 1-6?
Merce, where were you?
I was at the Capitol with these insurrectionists.
Where were you on 1-6? We were there. Trey Wright, thank you for the Super Ray. That's awesome. DE, keep bringing that heat, Fee. I'm telling you, Fee. DE says, bring the heat. Thank you, DE, for the Super Ray contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch. Eric Munn, y'all the best commentary on our present fucked up BS timeline we're watching. Thank you so much, Eric Munn. You're awesome. Breathing Apparatus. We've been talking about a lot of apparatus over here. Thank you so much, Breathing Apparatus, for the Super Ray contribution. Craig, bro. Craig, you got the best first name out there. Thank you for the Super Ray contribution. You are awesome. I appreciate it. We got 90 people watching. Also, all right, Maria Ranalli. I love your politics. Maria, I love your last name.
Ranalli.
Maria Ranalli. We need to get like an Italian Convo Couch shirt, fam. And Independent Left News left a Discord in there. Independent Left News, if you haven't gone over to his Instagram, do it. He gives an update about the shows coming on. So let's get to our guest of the evening.
Oh, Streamlabs.
Streamlabs, okay. Let me see if I can see him from here. Do you want to read him?
It's
all right, I can't see it.
Far.
I'll try, though.
Perfect
I'll do it. It's from Magnus Panvidia.
Make sure you're...
Oh, hey, Magnus.
Magnus.
They're already grabbing people for tweets on the 6th and charging them with incitement. The leader of UPG was in Kentucky tweeting about the riot and was arrested by the FBI for it.
Yeah, so UPG is their, it's like a unity chapter of a bunch of different orgs, and he's saying that they were grabbed by the FBI for tweeting. So, yeah. Okay. Awesome. Thank you for that.
All right.
Magnus.
So our next guest coming on right here, you might know him. He's part of the MCSE network. He was once the stand-in for the NSYNC boy band. I think he did Jordan's part and stuff like that, but he's great like that. You might know him as Roblito Fire or Robbie Jaeger, but I'm giving him a new nickname today because he always brings the heat and he always brings the receipts. So joining us today, Robbie Receipts, a.k.a. Robbie Jaeger. How you doing, Robbie?
What's up, guys? I feel like this is way overdue. Like I've been with the network for like, I don't know, like going on 2 years now, and I've finally lifted the Convo Couch embargo to finally to get on the show.
This is it. This is blasphemy.
You were on one of our quiz shows, which we only do for our special people, which is you.
I like
and
to pretend
also,
that didn't happen.
We use your tweets on a regular basis. That's why we're calling you. This is your new nickname, Robbie Receipts. Because if you want the receipts, you just go to Robbie Jaeger, and he's got the receipts.
Yep.
In all seriousness, I appreciate you guys having me on for that. That was this is an important story, I feel like. So I'm really glad you guys have brought me on to talk about it because it does need some attention for sure.
Sure. You want to start off? Or you want me to go first?
Go ahead.
All right. So you wrote this amazing article in Rokfin. The company behind the North Carolina pipeline spill inspected less than 50% in 2019. Improperly kept records. And this is just amazing over here because according to the federal pipeline accident data sheet, this is the 32nd oil spin from the Colonial oil company in North Carolina. 32nd in many years. Is this a failure of government, Robbie, or is this just collateral damage of the pipeline industry? Because I'm trying to figure this out right now because there seems like to be no oversight.
Okay, well, it's a failure on a number of shoulders, right? There's a lot of blame to go around, for sure. I mean, Colonial Pipeline themselves is, of course, surprise, surprise, owned by the Koch brothers or the Koch Industries and Shell Oil, right? Multinational, multi-billion-dollar corporations who have literally, they don't answer to really anyone. Colonial Pipeline itself has got as you said, a history of this, not just in North Carolina, but across the country. You mentioned 32 spills in North Carolina since 2000.
Yep.
32 of 38. That's the ratio, right? They're averaging since 2017. Now, those are just spills, right? We can go the overall incident reports, right? It includes tankers, procedural violations. They've had 60 incidents in that department alone since 2017, right? They're averaging like an incident every 8 months.
Yeah.
They're having accidents at a more frequent rate than your average forklift operator, right? And I feel like this is unacceptable. But specifically what happened in North Carolina, and by the way, you mentioned, is this a failure of government? It absolutely is, because not only have regulators allowed Colonial, and not just them, but other pipeline companies, but especially Colonial, to get away with, neglecting their pipeline, for lack of a better word, because that's basically what it is. But their regulations and their oversight are so inadequate and subpar that I actually, now that when I look through what is acceptable to these agencies. Even if Colonial is doing that, it's nowhere near enough, but the incident in particular happened in August, right? It was right outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. The Colonial Pipeline leaked 1.2 million gallons of gasoline into the Oler Nature Preserve. It was in a nature preserve.
Jesus.
Right? Which actually is the habitat to one, special species. I'm not sure if it's like endangered, but it's definitely on the watch list. But so, there is an environmental impact, right? And we'll get to that, I guess, in a little bit. But as far as the details of what actually happened, you spill, at first, Colonial Pipeline reported it was 63,000 gallons of gas, right? That was right when it happened. So, of course, 63,000 gallons of gas isn't going to get national headlines, right? Unless you're in San Francisco,
right?
Right. But well, that's just my little East Coast saltiness. But
that's okay.
I digress.
It's true, though. It's 100% true. You're right.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, so I can understand why people didn't just jump on it immediately, right? 63,000 gallons, whatever. A couple of months later, they quietly re-estimate 237,000 gallons until finally regulators are like, you've already recovered almost all of that product. There's no way that that's all there was. We need you to re-estimate again. And then finally, in January, they came back with the number of 1.2 million, which to me screams like, how did you get from A to B on that, right? Like, that's, what kind of math are you doing to get from 63,000 to 1.2 million? You undershot your estimates by 2,000%. That's crazy. And, that's incompetent, that's number one. But then you start looking at their inspection records, and it's no surprise why this happened, right? And, as the article I wrote, basically goes into, they inspected less than 45% of their pipe in 2019. Right. And, the way that their filing system is that they're double counting miles, right? It's kind of convoluted, but it's not very accurate on how they're reporting how they are inspecting these lines. But here's the big number, right? The key number that I'm focusing in on. The spill happened from a crack, right? And the pipeline itself runs 5,602 miles through 16 states. 707 miles of that pipe goes through North Carolina alone. In 2019, Colonial Pipeline only checked 649 total miles of the pipeline for cracks. And it's even worse. In 2018, they only checked 150 miles of it for cracks. So that's 800 total miles of your 55,600 mile pipeline that you've checked for cracks in the last 2 years. And then we're supposed to be surprised when you have a crack in your line.
How did they get away with that, Robbie? How did they get away with just inspecting like that amount, like half, basically a little less than half? How did they get away with that then? Like how is this allowed to happen? Where is the oversight?
Where is the oversight? I mean, that's the question that the more and more I dig into this story, as terrible as Colonial is as a company, and they have a history of this, a documented history, the more the thing that keeps jumping out at me is how much of a failure of oversight and regulation that we have in this country when it comes to the pipelines that already exist. What I've been saying is that in a perfect world, I would say no pipelines, but in the world we live in, I would say no new pipelines. That's definitely a possible thing, but we also have to really clamp down on regulating the ones we already have. Colonial Pipeline, 88% of the pipeline in just the state of North Carolina is more than 40 years old. Line 5, or I think Line 5 in Michigan, it's like a 60-year-old pipeline. Like, these pipelines all over our country are falling apart and they're decrepit. And when you have a company like Colonial and here's the thing, you ask how they get away with it. That's a great question. The PHMSA regulated, the Pipeline Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, their regulations say that they have to check their pipeline once every 5 years. Once every 5 years, right? That's the standard that's being set by our federal government. And that's unacceptable. I mean, let's just be honest. That's unacceptable. And but then you look at the math, like Colonial Pipeline since 2004, they use, and all these companies do, they use several different tools to check the pipeline for several different things. There's one for corrosion, one for dents, one for cracks, stuff like that, right? They haven't checked any more than 30% of their pipeline with any one tool since 2004 in a year, right? So at most, if they check, say, we're going to check a lot for cracks this year, they only check 30% for cracks. Maybe they check 20% for dents, stuff like that. But they're never checking the whole line in a year. And as far as the percentages go, they don't add up, because if you're only checking 650 miles of pipeline, well, in 5 years, you're only going to have maybe you've got up to 4,000 miles and you're still short. So how are you meeting regulations on that, even if you're inspecting on a rolling basis?
Yeah.
I just feel like there's no oversight.
Yeah. It's
and
funny.
there's nothing to stop this from happening again and again.
Robbie, it's funny because we always talk about the police being able to investigate themselves. Here's a pipeline, and it seems like a lot of the pipeline industry, they get to investigate themselves and then they shortchange it. And you talk about the PHMSA, right, which is a governmental agency that, deals with as far as like evaluating what a pipeline is, what's going on with the whole situation. If these oil companies are just going to ignore what these agencies tell them, then why the hell are we giving our hard-earned tax dollars to these agencies to do a job they're not doing? Because I really got to say that, Rob, this is an issue I have with a lot of my friends on the right. I call myself a leftist libertarian because right-leaning libertarians are very much fiscally, they're all about the market working itself out. And when it comes to this specific issue right here, they always say, it's jobs. It's jobs. He signed it because it's jobs. But, it's going to cost us a lot of money in the back end when you have these crazy oil leaks that are going to just be damaging and killing our water. Why the hell, Robbie, once again, why are we even allowing our tax dollars to go to these agencies that don't do anything?
Oh, speaking of agencies that don't do anything, it doesn't just really stop at, the PHMSA. I mean, they have fined Colonial Pipeline numerous times in the past. But again, Colonial doesn't really care because they know that, let's put it this way. Colonial Pipeline made over $1 billion between January and September of 2020. Okay. They are being oversaw at the moment by the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, which has an annual budget of $80 million. So I want to know who thinks actually that little state regulatory office is striking no fear in the Colonial Pipeline. I'm be surprised if they just have no power. Colonial Pipeline since 2017 alone has caused over $58 million in property damage. $24 million of that property damage stems from the incident in August, the one that I'm covering. And quite honestly, I reached out to the EPA to get a statement. Joe Biden's EPA, by the way, right? This isn't Donald Trump's EPA. I've reached out to the new regime and I asked them, is the Colonial Pipeline spill on your radar? Have you started an investigation? If not, do you plan on starting an investigation? And their response to me, and I'm paraphrasing, I've got the full statement up on my Twitter if you like that people want to actually go see it. But honestly, me paraphrasing this, they basically said, hey, we checked the drinking water and there was nothing in it. And the air didn't seem that bad, right? There wasn't enough this or that in the air for us to warrant really sticking around. So we kicked the can down to the state office, to the DEQ in North Carolina, and that's pretty much it. So unless the drinking water is poisoned, then, they're just probably not going to have much to do with it at all. And I asked this question to Steve when I was on Slow News Day, and I would like to see, how are you calling yourself? Your acronym stands for Environmental Protection Agency. So please help me understand how you are protecting something if you only show up after somebody's already poisoned it. I just don't understand that premise, right? Like if you're showing up after the damage is done, where's the protection at, right? That makes zero sense at all. And to be quite honest with you, it's ridiculous that we even have to this should tell people all they need to know about when it comes down, how we say there's really only one party, right? That's because while all the show and the lights and the cameras are on C-SPAN and CNN and all the flashy theatrics, where the uniparty really happens is in the bureaucracy, right? Yeah. It happens in agencies like the EPA, it happens at the DOJ, and stuff like that. And this is just another example that, the EPA is ignoring the fact that Colonial's own internal report that they published through a third party said that, yes, there was significant groundwater contamination. Groundwater contamination now, not drinking water, but groundwater. That means the environment has been contaminated. The environment has been poisoned. And also that one of those chemicals was benzene, which is a known cancer, which is a known carcinogen, right? It's known to cause leukemia. And, you know, quite honestly, that's just, you know, unacceptable that EPA just decided, you know what, hey, nobody's going to get sick from drinking any water. We don't care.
Yeah.
So when we talk about oversight, if that's the attitude, the no harm, no foul attitude, of course, these pipelines are never going to have any kind of incentive to clean up their act because nobody's hammering down on them. Where are our politicians? Where are our media? Where are our activists? They're nowhere. And
So shouldn't these CEOs then be tried criminally if there's you know the groundwater is poisoned now and they're not doing anything about it? Shouldn't these people be held to account?
I'm of the belief that Colonial Pipeline, given their history of neglect and their lack of checking or respecting their pipeline the way that they should be, the numerous times they've been cited by regulators, I believe that they need to come before Congress. I'm not, you know, we all know that how that goes, right? So I mean, I'm not really putting a whole lot of faith in that, but they need to have scrutiny on them, and they need to be, you know, on the news. They need to have their CEOs in front of Congress, in front of the court every single day, explaining themselves as to why that they find this kind of this acceptable, and we need to have some kind of accountability from the people in our government, saying, well, why have you not clamped down on these people before? Because here's the thing, you guys know obviously about the 600 gallons of oil that leaked into the bay, the San Francisco Bay the other day, right? Just as terrible as that is, and that is terrible, and that facility is another one that's got a history of leaks and explosions and fires. But, you know, just imagine if that 600 gallons was 1.2 million and what that would look like floating in the bay, right? Or what that would look like floating down the Mississippi River. You know, it's all very possible. And yeah, while the damage could have been much greater in North Carolina, that doesn't mean that what happened there isn't a story and it's not important, because yes, the environment was greatly poisoned. Colonial has a history of poisoning our environment, and regulators have a history of letting them get away with it. And if this were to happen in a populated area, or like I said, a large water source, it would be catastrophic. Absolutely catastrophic.
Yeah. You talked about the benzene, right? Did you mention that with the if it's only getting into the water of the animals is what they're saying, how does the cancer causing effect of the benzene kind of go into play when it comes to humans?
Well, it wouldn't. Right. If the humans aren't drinking it, I mean, it's probably the employees that are tasked of cleaning it up. But my whole problem is this, like you said, if the benzene, like, we're talking about theoretics now, like as in, like, if this would have happened, right? Imagine if, you know, all of that benzene would have dumped into somebody's, if it actually would have dumped into somebody's drinking water.
Yeah.
And the reason why that happened was because of, you know, regulators allowing half-assed oversight of pipelines that are over half a century old. And they're just letting them just spill willy-nilly, and like nobody cares. And that's the thing that bothers me the most about this story, is that nobody cares. You know, I see stories in The Guardian about how celebrities are lining up to sign letters to shut down Dakota Access. And, you know, that's awesome and all, but, you know, Dakota Access hasn't spilled anything yet. And we've got one running all the way up the East Coast that's being held together with duct tape and Bondo. And I mean, and it's ridiculous. And nobody cares because, like I said, no drinking water was poisoned. There's no tribal land dispute going on, you know, so nobody can politicize it. Right. You know, and we're a purple state, but, you know, if you look at the electoral map, we're a red state. You know, let's just be for real. Right. And those all kind of contribute to the fact that there's really nothing to talk about. But we need activists and politicians that are supposed to care about this stuff to be putting very public pressure on Colonial and making an example out of them, to that this won't be tolerated anymore, or we will shut you down. You know, but Colonial thinks they've got it in a bag, because last time they were shut down, the gas prices on the East Coast went up to like $8 a gallon. And they just we're not going to shut us down. you know, you're going to slap us on the wrist with a little $10 million fine, and we'll keep on doing business as usual. And it will, unfortunately, I feel like, wind up going that way. And it's going to keep going until something catastrophic actually does happen. And that's my worry, is that it'll be too late by then, you know?
So you've also talked about how the owners of the Colonial Pipeline, Koch Industries, spent $6.5 million to get Tom Tillis, of a Republican in North Carolina, reelected using super PAC belonging to their dark money, the Koch brothers' dark money, Americans for Prosperity. So this was you said that when the numbers get this high, it's not a donation, it's an investment. Apart from him, are there any other representatives taking dark money, and can you just talk more about that?
I mean, sure. I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me for any as far as anybody other than specifically from Tillis. I could probably pull them up in a second, but look, Koch Industries, Americans for Prosperity is a dark money nonprofit. There's like so many of them are, right? And it's one of the most prominent ones on the right. And of course, it's backed by the Koch family. And they actually, you know, they have their super PAC, and yes, they spent over $6.5 million to get Tom Tillis reelected. That was actually one of their highest spending. That was one of the most highest spenders that they had. They spent quite a few. They spent a lot of money in Georgia, as did most Republican super PACs, at least especially towards the end there. But you'll notice that a majority of the money that they're spending is right up and down that corridor on the East Coast, right through the Southeast, because that's where they have their grip. And that's where these oil companies, these pipeline companies, they know, hey, if we're going to have a foothold, it's going to be from Texas through Virginia, right? That area, that's the voters that are going to keep us in power. Those are the politicians that are going to keep us in power, because, and that's what I'm saying. Like, so this is what I normally do, right? I'm the money guy, usually. I'm the follow the money dude. I do all the political finance stuff. You know, so I know more than anything that, yes, whenever somebody is directly either pushing tens of millions of dollars to try to help you win an election, it's totally an investment. They're not just donating it. Like, they expect a return out of this.
Right.
And look, as far as dark money in general goes, the 2020 election had record dark money spending, and like 75% of it was actually on the Democratic side. So, you know, it's kind of hard to look at Tillis's numbers and say, well, that's just a massive amount. Whenever you look at Joe Biden's number and you see just it record-breaking numbers for Democratic dark money. But I will say this is that's a problem in and of itself. And I think it's less about the dark money than the fact that the Koch family knows it's got its priorities, right? They didn't spend any money on Trump because Trump's irrelevant to them, right? The Koch family needs senators and congressmen. That's what Koch Industries wants, and they need them all throughout these states in the Southeast so they can keep that foothold they have, especially in the oil and pipeline industries. And, you know, I don't know. It's a kind of a disheartening situation when I talk about it, right? Because you start to really see where the amounts of money being spent and the influence that wields. And, you know, it just kind of like, how do we fight this battle, right? We don't have that kind of resources. Like, we don't have that kind of power. So the question is, how do you get the oversight? How do we get some kind of accountability? And I think it starts with what we're doing, right? We're reporting on it right now as journalists. The next step would be, we need activism, and we need pressure on AOC, on Bernie Sanders, on the people that are supposed to care about this stuff. This is their platform. Remember, they were all about the environment, Green New Deal, you know, no Dakota access, all that kind of stuff. Like you guys, you know, in Bernie Sanders, the Justice Democrats, Sunrise Movement, all of them, you know, full disclosure, look, check it out. I'm trying to raise awareness for the story. I might have my issues with Sunrise, but both the chapter from LA and the chapter from Durham have been in contact with me about this story. And they asked me to send them some information. And I was like, great, sure, I'm happy to help. Nothing. I sent them all the information that I had at the time.
Crickets.
And nothing has been said. But they did have time to retweet Mark Ruffalo about the Dakota Access Pipeline. As he was on that little video that he had as he was jogging through the woods or whatever,
right.
Whatever. And it's just kind of like, is it because you can't politicize it You know, is it why? I mean, I don't understand. Maybe you guys have better insight into that as I am. You know,
they can't liberally politicize it. Like liberals like an emotional backstory to these things. Like if it's all numbers and data and it's not a sexy topic, then they can't politicize it. And if no celebrity jumps on it, then they can't weaponize it to be like, oh look, this is what the Republicans are doing and blah blah blah. So that's exactly why it's not getting the attention it deserves.
But number 8, Johnny, before number 7, if you can put up that tweet real quick because it's about this subject. I messed them up. But I think also part of the point of view is kind of understanding what they're doing over here. And here's just a simple tweet you put from tax campaign contributions and lobbying expenditures. Press, North Carolina Colonial Pipeline spill, ? Hey, look, the impeachment trial, # bread and circuses. So I think half of the reason is, half of the thing we have to do is kind of point it out right now and understand what they are doing. We just did a whole thing about the whole impeachment, how it was just a great distraction from actually coming up with legislation that helps people. And this is one of those issues. I bet, Robbie, if you showed some dead animals somewhere from this natural gas that leaked into the water, that might get some attention because it has to be emotional, right? It has to be like, oh my God, look what's going on. You know what I'm saying? For them to get wind of it. And this is something we talk about all the time. These oil leaks and these pipelines, it's a regular thing here, and nobody's talking about it. When you talk about infrastructure, we're talking about infrastructure of these pipelines if we have to keep them. So,
yeah, this is reform we can actually achieve with a Democratic-controlled Congress if they actually took it seriously and actually decided that they were going to hold. But we need a total regulatory overhaul from the top down, from the federal level, state level. We need to, once every 5 years is not acceptable. Colonial Pipeline getting away with improperly keeping their inspection records and delaying inspections under waterways for like 11 months at a time, and then getting away with a strongly worded letter. Those days need to be a part of the past, right?
Yeah.
They have these little fines. These fines should be significantly higher. And, we need politicians to get off their ass about this because, like I said, like we need some help from someone. And you're right. It happens all the time. And this is not just a little leak. What happened in North Carolina is going to wind up being the largest pipeline leak in the history of the United States. It's already the largest one, in North Carolina history. But 2,751 pipeline spills over the last 20 years. Colonial Pipeline is accounted for 10% of those alone by themselves with nothing. Look. You're right. It has to be emotional. I feel like for people, yes. If I saw some dead animals, or if you saw like the footage from the base spill, that's a big reason why that story blew up. Well, not only is it a terrible thing, and it does deserve attention, and Chevron deserves to get investigated for that, but it's the visual, the helicopter footage of that, the oil floating in the water. It's very striking. It's devastating to look at. So yeah, I understand, but on the low side, it's also like in North Carolina, there's people that have already been bought out of their homes.
Yeah.
Because of the cleanup. So this is actually, it might not be as flashy of a story, but I'm trying to bring attention to it, if for nothing else, even if you don't really think that the pollution was significant or that the spill was, a disaster, which it was. This should be, if nothing else, a cautionary tale, because this could have been so much worse. If it had happened in a different part of the pipeline, or if it happened at another pipeline in a different part of the country, if this would have happened in the Bay, if this would have happened in a big drinking, if it happened in the Hudson, it would have been terrible. And then we're talking significant loss of marine wildlife. We're talking significant, like I said, all that benzene pouring into your drinking water, not a good thing. No. Right. And I just hope that we can bring enough awareness, if not to just story, but to this issue, which is the lack of oversight, a lack of regulation, and a lack of accountability. It's a failure on all sides. Yeah. And we need, it's got to be fixed. But the good thing is that we can fix it. But we just have to get public pressure. We need media pressure. Because, without it, we're just all kind of just talking to ourselves, and we already know what, I know you guys are, all about it. I'm all about it. But, who are we influencing, on a corporate level, on a federal level? We're not influencing policy. These fucking justice Democrats that these so-called progressives, they only fight for stuff that they know they can't win. And that's why they always, they go to bat for impeachment, and they go to bat for, whatever else, stuff that doesn't really matter, right? You go for stuff that you know you can't win. That's AOC's calling card. If this was a national headline story right now, AOC would be literally on it right now. You know what I mean? Like, if this was something that she knew she could get some, popularity from. But here's the thing, is that she can, actually pushing for issues. And I'm calling her out specifically, and I'm calling out these organizations specifically because somebody needs to, right? What's the thing? You got to make you uncomfortable. Somebody's got to call you out and say, hey, you're lacking. Like, you are lacking hard on this issue. Either you don't know about it or you don't care. And you know what? Me talking a little bit of smack to you about it shouldn't matter. You should still get out here and push for this cause, because if you dislike me more than you care about the environment, then that's a you problem. Then you're a fraud, right? So I invite any of these. Like, look, somebody has to pressure. So I invite the Bill McKibbins of the world and the Bernie Sanders of the world alike. All of you so-called activists that care about the environment, you need to care about it when it's not flashy. Yeah. Right. We got to care about it all the time. Pipeline issues this is a product of decades of legislative neglect from Congress and from our presidents. They've kicked this can down the road for 30 years or 40 years now. And now we're about to start really, we're reaping the benefits of that kind of neoliberal, we're neoliberal and neoconservatism combined, right? It's always on the same few issues. It's always oil, war, and Wall Street, right? Those are the three things that they always get along on. Yep. And you can tell that because those are the things that hardly ever change, right? And that's why we are where we are now. And until somebody actually breaks that mold, I'm afraid that, it's something worse will happen. So we really got to fix this, guys. And, I don't know what to do from here other than just keep digging into companies like Colonial and, making sure that, hey, somebody is watching you, right? It might not be the politicians or the regulators, but I'm watching you. And as long as I'm watching you, I'm going to post all your shit on Twitter every time you put it out. I mean, that's
why we call you Robbie Receipts.
Robbie Receipts. Fam, it's kind of funny too, but remember in Florida with the intercoastal with Big Sugar, they were filtering their sugar cane into the intercoastal, killing the marine life. Nobody paid attention to it until dead manatees showed up, and then it was only paying attention to it until it really hurt the money industry there, as far as going for vacations, whatnot, and all that stuff. And it was like, this is really digging into our economy over here. Then they decide to fix it. So maybe until it just crushes everything in North Carolina. And people can't go there anymore once the economy opens up. Maybe then they'll wake up. So I don't know.
So Robbie, tell people where they can find your work, where they can follow you, and anything else that you want to let them know.
Sure. So I do most of my work. I try to make my Twitter feed like a news source. So you can get to my Twitter and get some breaking news, hopefully just about every single day, at RobletOFire, ROBLETOFire. That is also my name over on Rokfin, which I really, really encourage everybody to go over there. Get on Rokfin as much as you possibly can. Get away from YouTube. Get on Rokfin.
Absolutely.
Not only is it better for creators, so we can create and not have to worry about being censored, and we can actually be journalists without having to worry about being suppressed. But it's also better for the viewers because you guys get a more honest, you guys get more honest show. Nothing has to be sugar coated or anything like that. So definitely go check out Rokfin. If you don't check me out, check these guys out because they're amazing. And before I go, if you guys and your viewers, if you guys have 5 minutes of spare time later on today or tonight, and you need something to do, just take about 5 minutes of your time and just read up something on autism and its effects on children. So we can just kind of help make a more inclusive and educated world for our neurodivergent brothers and sisters out there.
Nice.
And that's about it. That's all from me, guys.
We love you, Robbie.
We love you. Thank you so much, Robbie. Thank you for coming on and sharing this important story that a lot of people are not talking about.
Ban on fracking, fam.
Yeah.
Ban on fracking.
Sure, guys. Anytime. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks.
Take it easy.
I'm going to go through some really quick Super Rays real quick, and we'll get on our way with the rest of the show. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Go over and check out Robbie's Rokfin. Sign up if you can. Glory Jones, never forget, 42069.
I agree, Glory. Never forget.
Hashtag never forget. Eves Lewis, thank you. You guys are the bomb. No, you're the bomb, Eves, for that beautiful Super Ray. We appreciate that. Mary Guerrero, we need off act yesterday. And by the way, Mary Guerrero, thank you so much for joining in with the Super Chat. We're 10 away from 100. Come over from YouTube. Go over to the Rokfin, Rokfin. Sign up for free. Fam, I can't even say this name. ZOXOV. Ovoxix, Vikavakats, 911 to 116, 202, 1.01.06, rotate 911 180 degrees, and you'll get 116. Johnny, I'm going to let you handle that because you're Johnny Rabbit Hole, and you'll understand what's going on. Maria Rinaldi, thank you so much. It's impossible for me to become on the left, more on the left than I am. Your show is excelente. Love you both. AOC is fake. I think she is definitely not a socialist.
Not even close.
Fam, you don't think she's a socialist
No.
and stuff like that? Matt Emery, thank you for the Super Ray contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch. And that's all that's there. Once again, get over from YouTube, over to Rokfin. Fam, we like talking about elections. So what are we talking about next?
Right. So a lot of people aren't even paying attention to this except the gray zone. And basically what we do here in our own country, where we steal and manipulate elections, we and our U.S.-backed allies are trying to do in several countries, including Ecuador and Haiti. And this is why I get so mad about the hypocrisy of the liberal establishment when they talk about a couple things, when they talk about democracy and when they talk about white supremacy, because they ignore it when it's beyond their border. And it actually is directly affecting us here. So Ecuador is now going to recount the presidential election votes after Perez, which is one of the candidates who came actually in third place, claims fraud. This guy, we went over a few weeks ago how Ecuador had their election and how there was an election, there was voter suppression, long lines, etc. But that the socialist, the part of the Correísta movement, was actually winning and did win by a substantial percentage. But the Ecuador Election Authority said on Friday that it's going to conduct a recount in most of the country to ensure the transparency of Sunday's presidential elections. This is after, of course, Perez claimed election fraud. Now, the left-wing socialist Correísta candidate is Andrés Arauz. He won the Sunday's vote and moved on to the April 11th runoff vote. With less than 1% of the votes left to count, Guillermo Lasso holds a narrow lead over the indigenous activist Yaku Perez in the race for runner-up. Remember, though, that both of those candidates are backed by the U.S. and their allies, both Yaku Perez and Guillermo Lasso, who was part of the previous administration that, of course, he's heavily involved in the banking industry of Ecuador, and he's extremely unpopular. But Yaku Perez demanded a full recount, saying that the votes had been manipulated. Even though he didn't present any evidence whatsoever of that, he argued that the data in the minutes of various electoral boards are inconsistent with what was entered into the counting system. And the National Elections Council President Diana Atmate said that the recount would be carried out in the province of Guayas, home to the largest city of Ecuador in Guayaquil, and where he had strongly questioned the outcome. And of course, 50% of the vote, 16 other provinces will be reviewed as well. Yeah. Okay, so that's the basic gist of it. Now let's go into a little bit of. Did you have anything to say on the first?
The only thing I was going to say is kind of funny you pulled it up because I also want to point out Camilla. She works for what's the name of the Telesur America. So they have been doing a pretty decent coverage too as well, along with
yeah, of course. In the US. Camilla is
But that's the only thing I want to point out. You hit everything on the nose over there and stuff, and I'm kind of interested to see what data he's presenting to say let's get a recount on. I'm very interested to see what
data.
He says that data doesn't match up. Where's your data? And stuff. Can you imagine if the third place candidate over here that Joe Jorgensen claimed the elections were fraud? They'd be like, "Shut up, Joe! You ain't getting nothing." So
we had the guy in fifth place become the president of the United States, and the woman who didn't get a single delegate become the VP. So it's really not that far-fetched, you guys.
Yeah.
So Camilla said the UN and Ecuador, the United Nations, is backing the coup against the Ecuadorian left. And what is exactly going on? Well, we're going to get into that right now because it's kind of crazy how related it is to what we do here, right? So the right-wing propagandists in Ecuador are now spreading fake news, and they literally are spreading fake news, falsely claiming that the leftist presidential candidate Andrés Arauz has been barred from the second round of the election. This is information warfare. These lies are part of the U.S. OAS Colombia-backed coup attempt, and we're going to get into exactly how it's fake. But it is entirely fake, and people who are part of the Ecuadorian government are even saying that. And he posted this that was said in Ecuador by the Gualfaco en Línea, and it says, "Attention, Diana Salazar said that the campaign of Andrés Arauz was financed by Guerrilla ELN, which was a corrupt group." But what they're saying is entirely false, and we're going to go exactly over how it is entirely false. Now, Ben Norton, of course, is on the ground in Ecuador. We're going to try to get him here as soon as we can because the reporting he's doing, I mean, for the U.S. is extremely valuable. But just to surmise real quick before I go into some details, the U.S./OAS right now, as we are distracted by impeachment and all this crap, is overseeing two coups, one in Ecuador and one in Haiti at the same time. Most of the U.S. left, quote left, is silent, yet alone trying to organize actions to meaningfully challenge this imperialism. The media left is too busy still heroizing Pope Bernie, and I love that part. Like Gloria Jones says, Saint Bernard, right? Gloria Jones. Almost socialists around the world want the U.S. left is to organize to challenge imperialism, to at least try to stop the constant wars, coups, and regime change ops run by their government. But most of the U.S. quote left doesn't even bother. If you do, they call you a tankie. And of course, I've been called a tankie as well, and Ben has also. And then he says, serious question. DSA constantly boasts of being the largest socialist org in the U.S. Cool. But what is it doing in moments like now when the U.S. is overseeing a coup in Ecuador to try to steal the election from a democratic socialist and backing a neoliberal dictator in Haiti? DSA's de facto media arm, Jacobin, supported the right-wing U.S.-backed coup attempt in Nicaragua. It demonized Evo and Brazil's Workers' Party, and it did, and the lead up to the U.S.-backed coups there. Now on to Ecuador and Haiti, what is it doing? It's easy to be against U.S. coups after they happen. And this is what always happens with the Brooklyn left. And I'm talking about Jacobin. I'm talking about these DSA. And like I said, I always differentiate between the DSA leadership and the people who are actually trying to do something at a local level. But it's still worth noting that if you are a member of DSA, you should bring up to them, why the hell aren't you talking about these coups? Why aren't we actually breaking down the the falsities, right? And the fake news from what's actually happening? Why don't we care about foreign policy? Why are we only talking about a westernized view of social democracy where we just deify and these people, this sort of Western socialist Denmark and blah, blah, blah. But you don't talk about the global South. No. And you talk about how you are against white supremacy. This is white supremacy. What's happening right now. And that's the hypocrisy that I hate in this liberal/progressive wannabe democratic socialist agenda that is so it's so representative of left-wing movements here in America, right?
Yeah. I was going to say, fam, it's just so funny the fact that the OAS back behind the State Department and U.S. imperialism is demanding an audit in Ecuador, but we don't get an audit over here.
Exactly. It is, it is absolutely a fucking joke right now.
It is a joke. Thank you, fam. Sorry.
No, you're...
Definitely needed.
So the last thing I wanted to point out about Ben in this tweet, he says the number one responsibility of the U.S. left is anti-imperialism. It's supposed to be, at least. It's not just another issue in a list. The U.S. left must do everything it can to challenge and dismantle the empire and its war machine. if it's not doing that, it's useless, or rather it's useful to imperialists. And that's exactly what the U.S. quote left, because I don't really think it's a real left, has become a just regurgitators of a rebranded form of imperialism that looks prettier, is more intersectional, but it's still imperialism, and it's actually worse because it is masked by the pretty face of the empire. It's no longer, it's AOC, it's intersectional, it's young, it's new, but it's still fucking imperialism. Yeah. And when you try to dress it up as something beautiful, it's doing a disservice, because it's harder for us to fight it when it looks like it's progressive, but it's not.
And let's be honest, fam. The political left, it's not even on your radar. No. It's not even on your radar. You don't even know what's going on outside the United States. You don't even pay attention to it because you feel that, it's not as important as what's going on at home. Listen, if our actions and our behavior is going around bombing indigenous people where they live, slapping on sanctions and starving people, denying them medical care and stuff like that, how do we come home and have a different type of behavior? All they're doing out there is practicing for what they're going to do back at home. And it's disgusting, and you need to get with it. The left, the political left, doesn't even pay attention to it. Sorry, fam. Go to Evo.
Well, fam, so Evo Morales is warning, right? He's warning, and he said, we are alerting on the plan of the right and the U.S. and Ecuador to try to prevent Andrés Arauz triumph in the second round using the Colombian prosecutor, parties of the right, and the OAS. We have an obligation to defend democracy and our regional integration. Attentive people. So he's saying, atención pueblo, like pay attention right now. This is what the U.S. and their Western-backed, NATO-backed OAS allies are doing right now, trying to do to the global South, of course, as soon as Joe Biden gets in. Not to mention that this would have happened regardless of whether it's Trump or Biden, because we have a bunch of neocons in power. So really quickly, I have to go over this Gray Zone article, and I urge you guys to go read it. But Colombia is heavily involved when it comes to the global South and trying to overthrow this election. Meanwhile, the U.S. is also involved on their end, right? So Andrés Arauz, like we said, won the first round. And I'm just going to scroll, Johnny, all the way down to Colombia spreads fake news. So basically, just to summarize, Colombia spread this fake news to try to prosecute the leading presidential candidate, Arauz, 5 days after the February 5th election. They had this recount. They intervened directly in Ecuadorian politics, which they shouldn't be doing. Now, the right-wing government right now in Colombia, the president is named Iván Duque. He has been linked to drug cartels and death squads. And they sent their chief prosecutor to Ecuador to have a meeting to disqualify Andrés Arauz. Okay. So, and the head of Colombia's Justice Department, part of this administration, his name is Francisco Barbosa. He is a close ally of Duque and amplified this fake news story that was published by conservative media outlets in his country, in Colombia, claiming that the leader of the socialist guerrilla group, the National Liberation Army, ELN, funded Arauz's campaign to the tune of $80,000. Now, they accused the guy, right? The ELN commander they accused of giving money to Arauz actually died. He was killed in October of 2020, 2 months before Arauz was actually registered as a candidate. So there is no possible way that is true. Okay. And they admitted this. They admitted that there's no way that this is true, but they're still spreading this information. He also met with the Attorney General of Ecuador, Diana Salazar Mendez, on February 12th, and they gathered evidence that in the framework of penal cooperation between the two countries. So the Colombian prosecutor met with Barbosa and with the Attorney General, and they're trying to say that they're just like making sure that everything's okay. Kind of like how, we meet with coup leaders, right? Everything's cool. No, you're not allowed to meet with these people. And so there it is. It's right here. You can see the little tweet there. They're uniting, or they're meeting to ensure the cooperation between both countries, which are, of course, right next to each other, right? And of course, these outlets decided to continue circulating, even though they pointed out that none of this is freaking true. The video also contains spelling errors and weapons that the guerrilla group does not use. And more than anything, fam, the video showed a bunch of birds because they're saying that this is in Colombia. So they were alleging that the video was made in Colombia because Arauz and Correa were trying to work with this guerrilla organization in Colombia. But the fact that they discovered is that this rare species of birds is not indigenous to Colombia. It's indigenous to Ecuador. So in the video, basically, it dispels its own notion because the birds would not be there. They would be in Ecuador. So it's hilarious.
Rechazamos la crítica que realizan los medios de comunicación al servicio del imperio de sus agencias de seguridad sobre nuestra intervención, sean del país que sean, porque tenemos todo el derecho de apoyar a quienes consideramos referentes de nuestros ideales revolucionarios.
Johnny, if you go down to this tweet right here, he's basically Ernesto Samper P. He is the former article. Colombian head of the state, pointed to the numerous falsehoods. And you can see right here the information about vínculos de Arauz con ELN son una infamia. This is infamia means it's blasphemy, right? It's not true. And so they were disproven, but it didn't stop them from spreading this fake news. Okay, so that's basically what they're doing. And there's just basically the Barbosa who was pushing this whole narrative. He was the previous president, the president of Colombia, Ivan Duque's closest allies, and they have been friends for 25 years. And it's a conflict of interest because they're promoting their certain narrative, right? And here's a tweet from Dan Cohen where he says Francisco Barbosa was deployed to accuse Arauz of having links to a Colombian armed group, is in power thanks to direct support from one of the most violent drug cartels in Colombia, which bought votes for his boss, Ivan Duque. Note that in the last election, Ivan Duque won via bought votes, and you can see the pictures of them hanging out. So, again, this is just typical corruption, right? This is typical corruption. And it's crazy to me, fam, that I mean, this is what's happening, right? Like they're saying that this has been happening before. This is a repeat of old strategies that are being used again. Yeah. And this has been happening for a while.
Yeah. It's funny too that because if we've talked about it before in this channel right now, the three countries that we sell the most weapons to are Israel, Egypt, and number 3, Colombia. A lot of people don't realize that and stuff like that, how in line the State Department is with that government. You know what I'm saying? Even in fact, I believe the FARC, they've retreated back into the jungle too as well, so they're at odds with the government, and shit can really go down in Colombia too as well. But the fact that Colombia is trying to invade into Ecuador and kind of swing their elections, you can just see they're doing the bidding of the United States. And then when you have the OAS there sitting there and giving all this bullshit fugaziness, and you have people like Cory Booker, well, I'm going to believe what the OAS has to say. I'm a vegan. Did I tell you that? I'm Cory Booker. I mean, it's ridiculous right now at this point like that. We can't even have fair elections here, but we're going to try to insert, and that's always the reason we go and invade these countries, or we try to do regime change. They have unfair elections. We don't have shit elections at home. Let's just pull back and worry about stuff at home. I'm sorry, fam. You can go ahead and finish.
So the CNE, okay, they kind of pulled what they pulled here, where they didn't finalize the results until February 11th. Up until 99.80% of the precincts were tabulated, and the tally showed for days that Perez had a narrow lead over Lasso for the second place, which was false. It was misleading, and the results were incomplete. Perez was the third place candidate, and you can look at the chart, Johnny. Perez is the third place candidate, but what the results they were releasing made it seem like he was a second place candidate, was allowed him to actually have the ability to question and say, oh, there was fraud. Because if they hadn't framed it that way, then he would have had no grounds to stand on. And so
it's Iowa all over again, fam. They learned from Iowa.
I mean, this is crazy. I mean, this is what happened during this last general election, where they were waiting to have all the votes that they needed, right? So basically, many Ecuadorians accused the top electoral body of bias, and the U.S.-backed Lenin Moreno government did not pretend to be neutral. I mean, Moreno actually had purged any members of the CNE who were suspected of having sympathies with Correísmo, who is the socialist that actually won thus far, and filled the top electoral council exclusively with politicians who opposed him from Yaku Perez's party. And so I mean, this is just how they're manufacturing consent. The CNE blocked former President Correa, the most popular politician in the country, okay, from running as VP. And they also banned the original political party of Andres Arauz, forcing the leading candidate to find another little-known party to run with. So this is the organization that's in charge, and they're manipulating this whole thing. I mean, they didn't even they ousted all the socialists. They didn't let this guy run as a VP. And Correa was actually really popular. And in fact, Correa was one of the people that was protecting Julian Assange. So there you go.
It's funny because we're going to find out a way. We have to get away from this OAS, these kind of think tanks and these NGOs that really are out there for American imperialism. We have to find more avenues where we can have like positive things that go around the countries and actually give a unbiased report about what's going on. I believe Garland Nixon went to Venezuela to overlook their elections, but we need more like that. It's going to come down to elections no matter what when it comes to the mechanism of power, not just here in the United States, but all around the world. So.
And just to continue to wrap this up, Johnny, if you go all the way to down, there's a tweet by President ECU. Lenin Moreno, okay, was the previous administration, this past previous one, had a meeting with an OEA official to verify what the election, and the Secretary General as well. So this happened, and the OAS, of course, has been, they were the ones that were in the Bolivian coup, involved in Venezuela. They always, if they say that there's fraud in an election, there's likely no fraud. Because they manufacture consent.
They did against Evo Morales and let a coup happen. That was by the behest of the OAS. They would have never, the OAS, they would never have gotten away with it if, in fact, that coup, if it wasn't for the OAS and politicians sitting there like Cory Booker, who says, well, I'm going to believe what the OAS says. And we're like, well, don't you know, do you believe what the NED says and stuff like that? It's like an apparatus used to dupe people into manufacturing consent to go in there for corporate interest, because it was all about the lithium, fam, and cause regime change. And that's what they're trying to do over here in Ecuador too as well. Make sure a socialist doesn't win, because I don't want American people seeing that you can give your people health care and education.
Right. And just Ben Norton also pointed out that the leader, La Jefa, of the Misión de Observación Electoral, the OEA in Ecuador, her name is Isabel de Saint Malo. She was a fanatic right-wing, right-winger who was trying to push the Venezuelan coup and push Juan Guaido. So she's in charge of the observation of the electoral in OEA in Ecuador. So just so you know that these players that are in charge are actually pro-coup. And they're backed, of course, by the corrupt government. But by the way, he's leading by 13 substantial points. Andres Arauz, the leftist leader. So they're going to have to manipulate a lot to try to get to say that the third tier candidate wants an audit, and they did manage to do that without any evidence, right? And then on top of that, they're going to actually, if that fails, then they're going to say, well, now because there's so much discrepancy, we want a full new election. So that's their next plan, fams. Wow. That's what they plan on doing next. So
yeah, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's what we're suspecting that they're going to do.
That's a bunch of malarkey.
Great article, you guys. Read it whenever you can.
Nicolas Guaido is one of the best leaders.
Nicolas Guaido.
Bunch of malarkey. Fam, what else we got? I was trying to be Joe Biden. You didn't get the...
No.
Where's my Oreos?
Fam, your lemon Oreos, I ate them. I'm sorry.
So,
guys, another coup that we're pushing, because the United States is very busy pushing coups, pushing impeachment, but not pushing any stimulus checks for the American people.
This is strong right
This is a really great article by the Black Alliance for Peace. Please go ahead and read it. Margaret Kimberly shared it as well. For the Biden administration, Black lives don't matter in Haiti. Okay. And this is, of course, was 3 days ago now. Just really quickly, I'm just going to read the first part. The people of Haiti have been demanding freedom from the succession of U.S. imposed dictators, which we have been doing for a long time. One such dictator, Jovenel Moise, refused to leave office February 7th, which marked the end of his term of 4 years after illegal election. This move catapulted yet another intense episode of the historic struggle of the Haitian masses against colonial intervention. Tens of thousands of Haitians went to the streets demanding democracy and an end to dictatorship. And what was the response from the U.S. puppet regime? Bullets, paramilitary terror, curfews, house raids, beatings, and the imprisonment of opposition leaders. With the election of U.S. President Joe Biden, folks believed the so-called, quote, champion of fair elections and the rule of law, who had expressed a commitment that, quote, Black Lives Matter, would rally to the side of Haitians and end U.S. support for the dictatorship. But that did not happen. When Moise announced he would stay in office past February 7th and continue the rule by decree, the Biden administration signaled it supported that decision. Moise's rule by decree was made possible because elections were postponed in 2019, which allowed the mandates of most representatives to the National Assembly, Haiti's parliament, to expire. In other words, the people must be sacrificed for the larger interests of the U.S. imperial project. These interests that could not be bothered with the trifle concerns about democracy, legitimacy, or the rights of the people. Those rhetorical terms are only evoked as expression of the United States' so-called, quote, values when directed at an adversary like Russia, Venezuela, China, or any other country the U.S. is actively attempting to destabilize. But those values cannot be allowed to complicate U.S. interests in Haiti or even in the occupied Black and brown communities within the United States. And so they're pretty much holding them accountable. They're talking about interventions, death squads, and how, the U.S. is a bunch of hypocrites. They talk about, especially the liberal, they talk about Black Lives Matter because the liberals talk about supporting Black Lives Matter. But then when they go to overthrow regimes all over the world and back dictatorships, Black lives don't matter because of their interests. Yeah. And it's all about resource extraction and whatever interests. And Johnny has this video right there.
DSA, fam.
Look at all these people right now. Look
DSA
at all those
put
people.
It up, though. How they freaking just shilling.
I know.
Dude, it's so bad, too, as well. And then we talk about countries that they're trying to destabilize. This country's been destabilized for a long time. And, the Clinton initiative was all up in there with the contractors stealing money left and right, starving these people out. This has been going on for a long time in Haiti. And this move does not surprise me whatsoever that the Biden administration and the Justice Department is signaling to the dictatorship in Haiti to continue to go on because they keep their corporate interests. And anytime the people try to rise up, they get shot back down from the colonialism behind it and stuff, because we have a lot of interest over there where we can resource extract from this whole country.
And the Twitter account, Madame Boukman, Justice for Haiti, has been tweeting a lot and updating a lot of Americans who, you're not getting this from mainstream media. So that you have to, resort to other accounts. So she said thousands in the streets of Haiti to say no to US/UN OAS dictatorship. The same elements that are involved, of course, all over the world, especially the global south, as we're seeing. Protests are usually overwhelmed with young people, but today it's young, old, and in between. In other words, those that live the horrors of the US-backed Duvalier dictatorship and its aftermath. So, there it is. And the Black Alliance for Peace also posted that the people of Haiti continue to rise up against the U.S.-backed dictator. They talk about their latest statement, and there's a video here that they posted. And Kai Pritzker said the U.S. invaded Haiti in 1915, right? A little bit of history. Then occupied it for 19 years. Upon arrival, they installed a puppet government and rewrote the Constitution to allow foreign purchase of Haitian land. This is what the U.S. did. The author of the Constitution, then Assistant Secretary of the Navy, Franklin D. Roosevelt. The reason I put this up is because a lot of the Bernie left tends to deify and create this whole aura around certain characters. And like Franklin Delano Roosevelt, right? And Bernie, of course, is guilty of this. A client government was installed and a new constitution was imposed. Interestingly, it was written by a talented young assistant secretary of the Navy named Franklin Delano Roosevelt. The constitution was put to a referendum, and it was reported that only 768 Haitians opposed it, despite a clause ending the prohibition on foreigners owning land in Haiti. That had been a hugely popular principle in Haiti since the revolution kicked out all the French landowners in the 1970s. The Haitian Revolution was one of the most powerful revolutions that is literally a blip when we get the Haitian Revolution.
Oh, the Haitian.
It's a blip in American history. Like, they barely ever mention it, but it was the way it was done, and it was so amazing. And most historians, of course, agree that this referendum and subsequent elections were rigged, and I don't put it past them. But this is one of the many reasons why FDR is also known as a racist by a lot of people, especially the black community,
we should
who
impeach
always
him.
talks about that. Yeah, let's impeach him post-mortem.
He's out of office. Who cares? Impeach him.
And this is again from Madame Boukman. Said, message to U.S. ambassador in Haiti. Okay, let's watch what she says.
This is awesome.
We say we don't want
Il pas payer George Bush, il pas payer Clinton, il se paye Jean-Jacques Dessalines. Madame Tisson, mais pour nous en côté, suspendre l'ingérence dans le dossier nous, dans le pays nous, parce que nous disons pas de Jovenel, à pas Jovenel, rien Jovenel.
So she said, sit your ass somewhere and stop interfering in our nation. Haiti is for Jean-Jacques Dessalines and his children. It's not for Lincoln, Bush, or Clinton.
Wow.
That's one of the most powerful things you can say.
They know they're
Look,
up in there.
Lincoln, Bush, or Clinton. And it doesn't matter if they're a Republican or a Democrat. They're imperialists. And that's something that we need to know.
Trump didn't do shit for Haiti either,
Nope.
man. Trump didn't do a goddamn thing.
Not a damn thing.
And there's
fam.
a lot of people in Florida. I was surprised. Maybe he would try to go after some votes over there and stuff, but he didn't do a goddamn thing for Haiti.
No, and here she is again talking about how the protesters in Haiti show Biden's 2019 tweet where he criticized Trump for, quote, abandoning the Haitian people. Biden picked up where Trump left off because the U.S. criminal foreign policy towards Haiti never changes, regardless of who's in power. And it's been that way since 1804. They're literally holding up Joe Biden's fucking tweet.
His
like,
tweet.
Nobody's talking
Look
about
at
this.
that.
Why? They're holding up Joe Biden's tweet. They are more aware than the average American on foreign policy. I'm telling you, like, they understand what our government does. Why? Because they're on the receiving end of it.
Yeah.
They're on the receiving end of the foreign policy. And now when some Americans start becoming on the receiving end of our foreign policy come home to conquer them, they're going to start freaking out. And that's why people are starting to talk about censorship now, because now it's coming into us. It's the same policy. It's just where it's being directed.
Yeah, and the wink to the imperialist and the dictators in Haiti by the State Department by Joe Biden, disgusting. You got caught once again. You'll sit there and you'll politicize it, and whatnot, for your own benefit. But when it comes time to act, you abandon them. So.
And just one of the last ones I wanted to show was that Haiti's airport crossroads, the protesters gathered, and it was named Resistance Crossroads in 2019, right? And they gathered by the thousands against the dictatorship and imperialism, but they specifically had lots of Black Lives Matter signs. Where are all the liberals talking about Black Lives Matter? There it is, Black Lives Matter. So there it is, Black Lives Matter, standing against corruption. I don't understand. Where is the Black Lives Matter organization? Where are the leadership when we're talking about Black Lives Matter? That doesn't just end when it comes to the U.S. borders.
Yeah. Why hasn't there been a Haitian protest out over here right now as well? What's going on? I saw protests for the farmers in India. We see protests for this and that. Where's the protest for Haiti? You know what I'm saying? Armenia, we got it out here. You know what I'm saying? Is there something going on in Florida that we don't know about? But, man, wow. We used to say free Port-au-Prince back in the days. Port-au-Prince is the capital of Haiti, so just disgusting. And we're going to leave these people out to dry after we've raped their homeland. Resource extraction like crazy. The Clinton initiative was up in there, stealing that money left and right, putting in dictators to do it, and yet now we're just leaving them, once again, old boss, right? New boss, same as the old boss.
Exactly. fams. And, on our last foreign policy sort of traveling that we've done on the show, I know it's a lot of information, guys, but this is what we're doing right now. Chile. So there was a news release by the Defense Security Corporation Agency, and this was, of course, dated, I think, as of a couple days ago, a little over a week ago, February 5th, 2021. The State Department has made a determination approving a possible foreign military sale to the government of Chile of Standard Missile 2, SM-2, Block 2A missiles and related equipment for an estimated of $85 million. The Defense Security Cooperation Agency delivered the required certification notifying Congress of this possible sale. They did do it. And there is I just wanted to show the actual newsletter, but they approved basically $200 million in weapons sales to Jordan and also, of course, the right-wing neoliberal regime of Chile. And of course to NATO. $85 million is going to go to Raytheon. And of course,
really?
who sat on the board of fucking Raytheon, Pasta?
Secretary General Lloyd Austin sat, but he was on the board. But they got a waiver, fam. They got a waiver for him to go in there, whatnot, and yeah. And by the way, in Jordan, but what they're doing, they're building like a wall.
Yeah,
it's like we got to
walls.
stop with the walls and stuff. The political left was saying Donald Trump's a racist. He wants to build a wall, but now here comes the State Department and Joe Biden's like, here's money for a wall.
Did you want to read something, Johnny?
Yeah, you already said it. I was just showing the principal contractor will be Raytheon Missiles and Defense.
Yeah.
Who, if you watched the Jimmy Dore Valentine's Day show, they did a fucking
Raytheon and Girl Scouts.
Girl Scouts and Raytheon.
Yeah. So Johnny, you can be a rocket scientist for Raytheon. Like, this is supposed to be a good thing, but they want to turn Gen Z into Raytheon loving disciples.
I was thinking, just my personal thought. How about the brownies and Halliburton? I think that would work. Yeah, that would work. Go ahead, Jimmy.
That was hilarious. I know that was decent. It took me a minute, but yeah. It's a combined $150 million deal. Okay, this is what the Pentagon said on Friday. This is a Reuters article now, and this is the first foreign military sales to be announced since Joe Biden became president. But the sales have taken months to process, and they're saying this is also linked back to the Trump administration. Again, Joe Biden could say no, we're not going to do this. He's not doing that. So it doesn't matter because it's the same fucking people in power. We're talking about neocons in power, and that's
Robbie
that's
talked
basically
about it, right? It's
yeah.
about the Justice Department when it comes to war, when it comes to oil. Big gas, it's the same people, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can even throw the medical industry in there too as well, big pharma and stuff like that. It doesn't make a difference who's in office. They're going to get through their stuff. So,
and basically, just wanted to read this from Defense News that Chile was approved to buy those missiles, $85 million, and it's going to be the anti-war weapons are going to be used aboard two recently transferred former Adelaide class frigates to Chilean Navy. It would be performed by Raytheon Missiles and Defense in Tucson, Arizona. And that is important to note in case you want to go there, fams, if you guys want to go to Tucson, Arizona and head over there. But that's what we're doing foreign policy rise. And the reason it takes forever to go over it, and that's, by all means, go and read especially the Gray Zone article on Ecuador and the information on Haiti by Black Alliance, because it is so important. This is what we do. And that's why there's no separation between our foreign and domestic policy, even though Pasta, goes on dates with people who think that they're completely separate.
Really, you had to bring that up, man? That was just terrible that you do that to me and stuff like that. I don't bring people's political ideology in there. Guys, there's only 86 hanging out.
Where the fuck?
Where are y'all at?
I know we've been going for a
while. Get on over here. We are, and stuff like that. Let me read some quick super rays, and we'll get on up to the last one. Parler's back. Kind of fucked up it took so long. Most of the organization happened on Facebook. This was supposed to be a big gain for Parler, whereas Facebook's month ban. Just kidding. I'm no fascist or a hypocrite. Like the censorship is wrong. And that's Embled Fate, Embled Fate.
It's Emblem Fate, fam.
Embled Fate. I like Emblem Fate. Thank you for the super ray. It's always appreciated on account. Andrea's with us. Andrea, always a good watcher. We appreciate your super rays. USA, unscrupulous, sinister arseholes And she got the arseholes right, too.
Arseholes.
The arseholes. Thank you
Absolutely.
so much for that, Super Ray. Deborah Wilson. Super Ray is really appreciated on the couch. Thank you, Deborah Wilson. And we have 85 people. We have still one last push. Fiorella Pasta Tsunami. Pasta!
Wow, that's a nice name, Fiorella Pasta Tsunami. I might change my name to that.
So we still have a little bit more foreign policy to discuss. We're going to really just go over it really
yeah,
briefly
this is
last
in the
section and
news.
stuff like that. This is in the news, whatnot section. Fam, go ahead. What do we got? What's going on over here?
So Syria is under attack, of course, surprise to no one. During the night, it usually happens during the night.
Yeah.
New U.S. military, this is from before, right? There was a new military base in northeast Syria, which was, of course, right after Joe Biden became presidency.
Yeah.
That was one of his first moves.
He was manufacturing consent to go back in there too, right, fam? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but this, like I said, this happened right after Joe Biden took the presidency, and I know Vanessa Beeley, who we've had on the show, said that a Joe Biden presidency is going to actually up the U.S. military presence in Syria, and as just they were just starting to get their shit together, and this they're saying that this is a response, of course, to the growing Russian presence in the city, and this base is inside Hasaka, okay, and the new center is being built with the aim of observing Russian forces in Hasaka, and the Russian, of course, military has been there since 2015, intervening on behalf of the government of Bashar al-Assad, because Bashar al-Assad, of course, is vilified by the U.S. government, so obviously there is an allyship between Russia and Bashar al-Assad. You know, I think all of us here have been called Assadists. Tulsi Gabbard was called Assad Todi, all these things. The Syrian chemical attacks, of course, were proving fake, but by the OPCW, we've gone over that multiple times. People are still saying there's no proof that they were fake. No, because this is how powerful this misinformation is, right? And of course, we know that Russia and the United States have come close to having confrontation via Syria, and we know the situation is only going to get worse. Now, After that, according to Press TV, which I guess we should talk to our man Dick about this. According to Press TV, Syrian air defense thwart Israeli attacks on Damascus. Now, this was literally like today, basically like in the night, right? Because they're ahead. The Syrian air defenses have neutralized the latest Israeli aggression against the western outskirts of Damascus. Syrian forces responded to the Israeli attacks because Israel was attacking them first, and this was over Damascus. And in the early hours of Monday, the Syrian official news agency reported, but they didn't give details on the casualties or the damage of the aggression. This is, of course, since the start of the foreign-backed war on Syria in 2011, Israel has carried out hundreds of airstrikes in Syria, targeting government troops and their allies. A few weeks ago, the Syrian air defense intercepted a number of Israeli missiles over its Hama province, and Israel's aggressive moves have been viewed by observers as an attempt to weaken Damascus's government as it increasingly gains the upper hand in its fight against these terrorist groups, right? And Syria has been gripped by the foreign-backed militancy since March of 2011. The Syrian government is actually saying that Israel and its Western allies, including the United States, of course, are aiding these terrorist groups that are wreaking havoc in the country. And of course, we can go back to talking about how we framed it like moderate rebels and the white helmets and all of that, but they were actually Al-Qaeda affiliated terrorist groups, right? And of course, we're basically trying to push our way in there as usual. And somebody commented on a Twitter post yesterday, like when Vanessa Beeley, was tweeting these things. Oh, but Israel has a right to defend itself. It's like Israel started these attacks, you guys. Like you can't.
Yeah. How do you defend yourself by bombing Damascus? Like and
here's some videos, Johnny. Just
I'm just gonna say though, real quick, fam. Though,
yeah.
It's kind of crazy that as soon as Joe Biden got in, and we pointed this out, Netanyahu was one of the first to congratulate him. It was all systems go. He gets the bomb under Donald Trump. He gets the bomb under Joe Biden. Doesn't make a difference.
And yeah, so there is that Israeli airstrikes target Damascus again. According to Syrians, it's unprovoked. According to Israel, they had the right to defend themselves.
Because they say they're going after Hezbollah inside of Syria.
Literally, you're not hearing about this, though. You only hear this from the independent media community like us, and I'm sure Richard Medhurst is going to talk endlessly about this because this is, his country. But it's disgusting. Like, we don't talk about this. You don't see anything related to this at all being talked about in any way, shape, or form. And then we have the next one. I think it's also a video. And this is the moment where Israel was bombing Damascus. At least one military aggression a week by Israel on Syria. But Israel has the right to defend itself. So, can you imagine, you guys? Like, I'm just
missile flying like that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to put in perspective. Imagine
American
sitting here,
exceptionalism.
being an American, right, and having like. I mean, Americans are over here fucking bitching about, I'm so sorry, impeachment, and oh my God, and I'm not okay right now. AOC, I'm traumatized, all this shit. Imagine living through one fucking hour, one fucking 5 minutes of seeing a missile go down like right over fucking LA or right over fucking DC or right over fucking anywhere you are. Imagine just going through that. What? This is what our allies are doing. This is what our weapons and our money, our funding. This is what's happening. And nobody gives a shit because it's a bunch of brown people in the Middle East. Oh yeah, this is normal. This is how they live. You don't even think twice when you look at the way Syria, Iran, they're devastated by us, by what we did. And like, it's really disgusting and unnerving when you see this happen. Like, people are so used to seeing these countries like this. Like, we don't even care or blink twice.
See this, fam, there's 3 things that we were so scared about when Donald Trump got in office, right? Number 1, foreign policy. We knew it was going to be worse than Donald Trump's, and that's pretty hard to do. But Joe Biden said, hold my beer, and he amped it up. And once again, everybody's put in play. We know Raytheon, the whole 9 yards. We saw it, Blinken. So we knew that would be there. Civil liberties, right?
Yeah.
So civil liberties, we knew that the tech companies merging with the government, pretty much $16 million they gave Joe Biden. We knew that would be bad. And elections, right? We knew election integrity would go down the drain. And we're seeing it. That's why I said always that the lesser of 2 evils, in my personal opinion, was Donald Trump. I would never vote for him, never did. We voted for Gloria LaRiva in this house and stuff like that. But and once again, I don't want to say that one is worse than the other. They're both awful, and these are the reasons why we have to pay attention to it. And the fact that nobody's watching anything to do with our foreign policy, again, is awful. So,
and just going over what Vanessa Beeley said. So Trita Parsley said, "Take note: Israel media is only openly reporting that Israel will start a war." Is openly reporting that Israel will start a war if Biden rejoins the Iran deal, right? So Israel is basically putting pressure on Biden to do something, not to do something Biden thinks is in the best interest of the U.S. So Israel is basically threatening war if the United States rejoins the Iran nuclear deal. And Vanessa Beeley says they will not attack Iran. They will claim to attack Iranian troops in Syria, because now there's also Iran is also involved. Now you have the Russia, Iran, U.S., Syria quagmire going on right now.
Well, they always say it's always Hezbollah they're attacking in Syria, and that gives them, that justifies them the right to do it. So
meanwhile, too, in Yemen, right? In Yemen, they're also this is what's going on in Yemen, right? Very bad news. More than 2,000 trucks loaded with food, right, in Hodeidah are stuck and couldn't deliver the food to different areas due to the lack of fuel caused by the Saudi siege. The Saudis are still using siege, even though Joe Biden has said that they're not going to continue to supply weapons on their end. That doesn't mean that the Saudis aren't going to get the weapons. It doesn't mean that the Saudis are going to act and do the right thing. No. This is going to lead to even more of a humanitarian catastrophe.
It's a bunch of shit, fam, because he sits there and he goes, we're going to make sure we're going to end this crisis, but we're going to give Saudi the rights to protect themselves against Iran. They're going to still sell them weapons. So he's just virtue signaling. Once again, the Democrats like to just scream into the air and act like they're really mad about something, and they're just so pissed off about it. And it's just a virtue signal to act like they care, and then they go on and they screw you anyway. So it's just terrible. Yeah. So just finishing up this really quick in the news, I'm just going to go over this real quick. The AZ audit we talked about,
Arizona.
The Arizona Maricopa audit. We're starting to get to him. I got a blue check fam who came after me who said every single thing that Yo Pasta says in this about the county's audit is inaccurate. You know what I'm saying? And this was about the video we did the other day, which is getting a lot of play right now. It's pretty doing well. And it is. We looked at everybody who we talked to. We actually had auditors up there say it's not an audit. You know what I'm saying? The conflict of interest, we're showing everything. And I love it when establishment-friendly figures deny reporting from actual auditors, but go ahead and gaslight the people in order to carry weight for the democratic apparatus. I hope people of Maricopa see this in order to differentiate between a journalist and a propagandist, because they are part of the problem right now and stuff like that. They keep on saying that these audits are legit. They are okay, whatnot. And fam, I think you even asked her, and you asked her, you said, well, where is pasta being inaccurate, right?
Yeah.
And she couldn't say, oh, a story is coming out on this, so let's wait and see the story whenever it comes out. You know what I'm saying? I have detailed article coming out tomorrow on this, but for now, audit does not simply open up the machines. And she gives a summary. And Johnny, I believe you looked at the summary one now. It's still a logic and accuracy test, right? Is there any ballots given over in this audit? Do we get to look at any ballots whatsoever?
There's no ballots. There's nothing about logs, which is what I was kind of looking into. It's kind of just about hash values, malware detection tool. I mean, again, who's doing the audit?
Right.
Yeah.
The companies have a vested interest, right? Because there's
right.
a conflict
the
of
police
interest.
are investigating themselves.
Because they, what's it called? What's the company?
There's
not ES&S.
No, you're talking about the ones who do the logic and accuracy test. I forgot what they are.
No, but not ES&S. Dominion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Dominion hires these companies.
There's two companies. Yeah, I was thinking about the two companies that
to do inspections and audits all the time, which is what we talked about the last video. And so obviously there's a conflict of interest, because if they say, hey, there's actually fundamental fraud here, they're not going to get hired anymore. So.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because in her tweet too.
So I'm ready to read the article, but I don't know.
Yeah, we can break down the article once she releases it and pretty much just destroy it, because you can't lie to us.
No, and Jen, she's a let me make sure.
Fifield?
Yeah, Fifield. She writes for Arizona Central. She's a journalist, and she puts down that Arizona Senate President Fan K Fan, who has for months been pushing for a new audit of election results in Maricopa County, was invited to observe the county's new audit. She didn't go. And once again, they're trying to say, look, we have audits, but these people don't show up, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And Karen Fan responded to her, and she says, the Senate has had a representative there every day, as you know, Garth Camp in attendance. As Senate President, my job is to keep the Senate building, committees, and the floor actually moving to serve our constituents. Surely you didn't want me to shut down the Senate. So once again, they're trying to, obfuscate, lie, move things around, make it look like these people are just not showing up to their audits, and they really aren't audits whatsoever. So, I mean, we'll just keep an eye on that.
Let's wait for her article.
Yeah, let's take a look and see what she has to say. But we understand if there's no ballots involved, if the ballot images aren't involved, and they can't test those ballots for accuracy to make sure people are on the voting rolls, make sure the signatures are okay, make sure those ballots have folds in them. You know what I'm saying? We found out, you know what I'm saying? All these people want in Maricopa County, Arizona, is a rightful audit. That's all we want everywhere. And I heard the same stuff's going on in Florida. I'm going to look into it and get back to you and see what's going on in Florida as well as the audit, because that's something to really realize across the country right now, is that we haven't had proper audits. And the last tweet we have of the day, fam, your friend Nina Turner.
Nina Turner.
I got some tweets, but
okay.
Sorry.
Said, we are reminded that in the fleeting time we have on this earth, what matters is not wealth, status, or power or fame, but rather how we will have loved and what small part we have played in the making of the lives of other people better. Barack Obama. Why is she quote tweeting Barack Obama or quoting Barack Obama? Why people ask me, like, why don't you support progressives in the Democratic Party, Fiorella? Like, why do you think like that, third parties don't have their shit together? They don't. But like, we need to have some sort of power, and we need 100 more AOCs. We need the progressives to take over the Democratic Party because of that shit. Because they fucking start sucking ass and sucking up to the Democratic Party establishment. And even before they get in, because they think that's how they have to do it. They think they have to play ball. And then you have people like Nina fucking Turner, who has spoken out against the establishment, who is one of Joe Biden's hardest critics when it came to being part of the Bernie Sanders administration, who should have had more power in the Bernie Sanders, not administration, the campaign, but she didn't. And she's over here praising Barack Obama, who took us from 2 to 7 wars, is one of the worst presidents we've had. Obviously second to Bush, but still, like, he was a terrible president. He's the reason we have Donald Trump. We had Donald Trump, and now subsequently Joe Biden. Yeah. I mean, this is the guy you don't want to praise. Yes, he said something that is true, but it was written for him by somebody. He's promoting, he's just doing all these platitudes, and you don't have to do this fucking, you don't have to fucking do this. Why are you doing this? Now I don't trust you, because I think you're going to go in there and you're going to go and literally continue towing the same line that the Democratic Party establishment is doing. So why the fuck would I want to elect more progressives?
I didn't trust you when you had the D by your name and you were attempting to run as a Democrat. And once again, I don't want to hear this thing that, well, you can't win unless you run as a Democrat and Republican. If you run as a Democrat and you're not a Democrat, you lose, because you're going to capitulate to them. That's the only way you're going to win. So I'd rather you lose in running as an independent, standing on your values and your honest beliefs and showing that you're a true person against the duopoly, rather than join it and try this whole notion, this pipe dream is what we used to say back in Brooklyn, that you can change the Democratic Party. You can rehabilitate it. You can't rehabilitate shit. Johnny, what other tweets you got?
So if you guys don't know, there's been a huge freaking huge power outage in Texas. There's been a crazy polar vortex going on, and actually Texas is seeing like some really low temperatures, like 1 degrees, 10 degrees, and then it's slated to be like 10, 12 degrees, 20 degrees the next couple days.
Oof.
The polar vortex, basically it's become usually a strong jet stream, keeps the cold air contained up to the north, right? A strong jet stream confines Arctic air to the north, stabilized by a big difference in temperature between low and high latitudes. The smaller the difference in temperature, the more the wind belts meanders. So that's what's happening. The cold air is moving south. There's the wavy polar vortex, and the warm air moves some north. So that's what's happening. It's coming down all the way to Texas. So I saw Misty made a tweet here, and she says our energy system needs a complete overhaul. I saw somebody respond to this saying that, dang, our corrupt regime can't even keep the lights on. I await Venezuela's pick of a new interim president for the U.S., as it is clear there's a humanitarian crisis here that is being ignored by both major political parties. Let A through. So I like that.
That's hilarious.
And what I wanted to show.
I declare Steve Poikonen interim president of
the
United
over here. Steve Poikonen.
There's been a, if you just do like a hashtag power outage, you'll see all the power's been out for this person for 12 hours in Texas. Like, this is kind of big. This is like a big deal. Like, if the power out was out here,
imagine
we'd be freaking out right now.
We couldn't do this.
And it's like 1 degrees.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
awful.
You know what I'm saying?
What are you gonna do? Burn logs? You have to
no
go.
No electricity, no water. But we still have gas for now. My family's become so desperate to keep our food in the fridge from going bad. We put it outside in the snow.
Wow.
Jesus Christ.
And
we're living in a fourth world country. This
person, TJ is drawing, answered a few questions. A former electrical field, actually a current electrical field engineer, so a person who deals with the machines here that power cities, right? So power plants in the South are almost exclusively outdoors like this. So that's what they look like in the South, and she says up north, they're often enclosed in an insulated hangar-like buildings like this.
Right.
So you can see, she gives two examples. I've seen a couple of her posts. She's been around the country. She's been up in Alaska doing work to these buildings over there. The reason for these design differences are environmental. Up north, it gets colder and they need to keep the cold from getting in. Down south, heat is more intense. It would be a bad idea to insulate like that, where summer run season reaches triple digits, right? It gets like 100 degrees in Texas. The plants in the south are more susceptible to cold stress because that is the trade-off for being armored against the heat. This means that when temperatures drop suddenly, all the ways that cold can damage a machine will happen. Turbines are now more stressed because of environmental conditions. The demand from the grid is also higher because of the weather, right? Because people want to get heat. They want to get heat. So the grid is, people are trying to get heat into their homes because of how cold it is.
Right.
So it's like a doubling effect there.
Yeah.
People don't tend to crank their heaters up to 80 in regular winter weather, but they do during a storm like this. Appliance use increases the strain. Every spare thing you use in your house, even leaving lights on or unused electronics plugged in. This all causes increase in demand on machines that are creaking under the stress of the cold it was not designed for. When the reserve energy, that's megawattage for the grid, the difference in the generation capability and demand falls below a certain point, the grid regulators, ERCOT, will initiate energy-saving measures. This is what they've been doing. They were doing rolling blackouts.
Yep.
First, they will import excess power from other grids. Texas often imports from up there in Oklahoma. So that's kind of a map. ERCOT controls the energy grid down there. WECC over here.
Yep.
And then if the reserve drops lower, ERCOT will cut power from industrial users who have agreed to come down in the event of a tight grid. This is one of those situations. Even lower, and we will see rolling blackouts in an effort to avoid failure parts of the grid. This is the step we are at right now. This is 5 hours ago. Sometimes those rolling blackouts down work, and we see genuine blackouts. I'm currently in one of those genuine blackouts. So sometimes you shut down the plant, and then it doesn't turn back on. So genuine blackouts give rise to another problem. That is what is known as a black plant. Black plant is when a plant's turbines trip and go offline, and they are in a section of the grid that is in blackout conditions without their contributions. A plant that is a black plant condition cannot get back online without power from the grid to help start their turbines. A small percentage of the plants are black start plants, which means they are equipped with diesel generators that can provide the necessary power to start a plant back up if they are without grid power, right? So some have diesel generators that can start up again. A very small percentage of the plants that are black start. It's a very small percentage of plants that are black start. So she's worked at well over 150 plants in the past 4 years as a field engineer, and maybe a dozen were black start plants. When plants trip, that means that something happens that needs to be fixed. If they are lucky in Texas, the damage is fixable by the 2 to 8 technicians that typically man a power plant, and they roll the unit back up and get back on the grid. If they're not lucky, it is serious damage that requires an unscheduled maintenance outage, meaning field engineers. So I'm just showing you guys what it takes to get power back on, and that the infrastructure is really not set up for this because climate change is real. And this is like the first time I was just watching a live weather report, and they were saying that they've never had wind chill alerts before in this part of Texas, North Texas.
Yeah.
So,
this is Texas. It's not usually that cold.
It's like it was like 1 degrees, 10 degrees, and then the warm air makes it rain, so then snow, like what's it called, Louisiana, New Orleans, it's cold over there too. And then this is a whole nother problem for the homeless. They're in shelters. It's like freaking below freezing weather.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. The homeless. Imagine this is just a polar vortex going throughout the Northeast and into the Midwest. And what about homeless people, right? Wisconsin was asking the governor Evers, hey, can you please, at least house them for a few days? And the governor said, well, we're just going to send out some people to bring heat to make sure that the houses are doing fine with heaters and blah, blah, blah. But they're not doing anything for these people that don't have housing.
I'm just wondering right now. My question is, number one, it's like, obviously we have an issue. We talked about, pipelines with Robbie Jaeger and the way we kind of get some of our energy. But is this an overall problem of just the way we also do get energy is combined with the fact that global warming is taking effect? And what can we do moving forward? I mean, if we had solar panel on everything, you know what I'm saying? And a way to store that energy on each individual houses, would that be better? I mean, we need to come up with some serious solutions for our energy down the road. People need to wake up to this, what's going on right now, because this might not affect them right now, but it will affect them eventually. You know what I'm saying? Especially when our grid system is always borrowing off each other, dependent on each other and whatnot. Shit's going to happen. If we don't come up with some solutions right now for the future, we're going to be screwed. Yeah. We are going to be screwed. And people might think, oh, it's just no energy for a little while. No, people die because they...
Right. So if you're an old person and you don't have like that many people around you, you're screwed.
Yeah,
same thing that happens
during the
heat.
Oh, and then, the power's out, so there's no internet. Also, cell towers have been like spotty and shit. So like people haven't... I'm surprised people are even tweeting right now, and
wow.
There's no energy and shit. I woke up today, I was like, it's kind of cold. It's 64 degrees here in Pennsylvania.
It's cold.
And over there in Texas, it's 13, 9, 13, 11, 22, 28, 34, 19, 12. This is crazy.
I mean, when we were in D.C., we were freezing, right? And it was like 30-something degrees, 40 degrees.
High 30s, low 40s, and we're like, ah.
Yeah, it was pretty cold.
Yeah.
Wow. Can you imagine a nursing home, though? 9 degrees, 12 degrees over here and stuff like that. Can't get power back. What are they going to do? You can't even plug in a heater to crank a personal heater.
Oh shit! Our boy Tony watches closely. He's over in Texas. If I recall correctly.
Yeah,
Tony.
he is. Tony, let us know what's going on over there, Tony.
I just thought about this. This is a big deal. I don't know. It's like it's kind of
we haven't heard
it's
from
kind
him
of
today.
historic shit. This is historic.
And the extremes are only going to get worse, you guys.
Exactly.
They're only going to get worse.
We need
and we don't have the
solutions.
infrastructure to deal with these
These are the
extremes.
live temperatures right now.
We need solutions where people aren't just benefiting off the power industry and just raping the money and just also they're just sooner or later the oil's got to run out, right? So what are we going to do after that? We have to prepare for that anyways.
And not to mention that we don't care about the vast majority of middle America, right? Only like the most popular urban cities get the attention, which that's a whole other thing too.
The temperatures were like 10 degrees, but it feels like -2 is what
Right.
it says.
The
Live
wind
winds.
chill.
That's ridiculous.
14-mile-per-hour
In
winds.
Texas,
live winds. This is
in Texas.
You see
That's
all this. This is
insane.
live right now. This is all live. So
Jesus
it's crazy, man.
I feel bad. Johnny, we got anything else?
No.
All right, guys. I got some super rays. We'll get out of there. Do we have any from Streamlabs? Let me know. Andrea, and this is a great one. Zionist Biden in his own words. My name is Joe Biden, and everybody knows I love Israel. Of course I'm a Zionist. Thank you, Andrea. He did say that. We remember playing that before pre-election. There's no way that clown won the election. You got to be kidding me. I think that's it.
Fake news. Come on.
I know. 88 people watching. We almost made 100. Next time we'll get there. Guys, ladies and gentlemen, if you have a chance to go over to the Rokfin, Rokfin, I would definitely appreciate it. We would definitely appreciate it. We have been demonetized on YouTube.
Yep.
So this is our saving grace right now. We also have a system where you can go ahead and you can donate to us and be for $9.99 a month. I think we have really quick. I'm going to check you right now. I think we have 163 subscribers. So we need 37 subscribers by the end of the month. Endorsees. So please go on over.
Endorsers.
And you can also just follow us for free. So you don't have to pay anything. You can sign up for free, follow for free. We appreciate it if you move over to Rokfin because that's a place where we're not getting censored. Thank you very much to our Patreons. We had a lot of you out there. You've been awesome. Thank you to the donations on PayPal. I don't want to leave you out there. And today I'm picking up shirts. There's a bunch of people who won shirts the other day. We'll have another shirt contest on Wednesday when we get some new shirts in. We got the Defund the Pentagon. We have the FAM shirts going out. So definitely thank you to all you people who've participated and helped us out with this demonetization process. So for Pasta Jardula.
Wait, I got one.
Oh, Johnny's got one more.
The Streamlabs.
Streamlabs.
Hold on. Let me see. It's from Mona.
Mona!
She said, yo, just because I love y'all, keep up the amazing work.
Thanks, Mona.
We love Mona. Oh, we got a cat.
How'd she do that?
Oh, the cat.
Mona's got 2 shirts coming. One for her and one for our good friend Sleepy Josh. They're going to get fam shirts because they love the word fam so much.
I wasn't
So
expecting
that
that cat. That's hilarious. Okay.
What did Shauna say, by the way? Because that's a great way to end the show.
Oh, I have this on the backup just in case because this is more true than anything right
Say
now.
it, Johnny.
True integrity is standing by your value system even when it favors your perceived enemy.
We're going to end the show right there with
Shauna needs to ram that through progressives' heads, and I know she does that all the time, you know? Like, I love her. Shauna's great.
How can you not like Shauna Burley? She's amazing. So for Pasta Jardula,
Fiorella,
Johnny Sue on the 1s and 2s.
Convo out.
See you Wednesday, everybody.
Peace.